Welcome to the July 8th, 2021 BAR Small Virtual Meeting. My name is Lindsay Van Slambrook. The other board members present today are Glenn Gardner, Bill Huey, Julia Martin, and Fillmore Wilson. City staff present today are Tori Parrish and Kim Lavin. The order of today's meeting will be as follows. We'll begin with an introduction and overview of the project given by city staff for the benefit of the board and the public. This will be followed by a presentation by the applicant. There will be a 10-minute time limit on this presentation. Any and all presenters should present their name first and last clearly for the record, and persons affiliated with the project, such as owners, developers, designers, architects, consultants, should speak during this portion rather than during public comment. By ordinance, the board can ask questions of the applicant at any time. By custom, we do so on the heels of the applicant's presentation. This will be followed by a period of public comment. Again, if you are speaking as a member of the public, please state your name first and last clearly for the record. Public comment will be followed by city staff comments and recommendations. Following this will be a period of 5 minutes for the applicant to respond or clarify to anything raised during public comment or in the city staff comments and recommendations. Following this will be board discussion and a vote. The applicant presentation is closed during this time. An applicant may clarify inaccurate information when recognized by myself, the chair, by raising a hand and waiting to be called upon, but otherwise an applicant may only speak if asked a question by a board member. The following items have been withdrawn or deferred today. Agenda item number 2, 4 Haygood, 6, 257 Rutledge, and number 7, 46 South Battery. I ask that you please limit your comments to architecture only. Comments related to zoning, such as parking, traffic, lot coverage, and livability concerns are not within the purview of this board and cannot be voiced here. Now I will turn it over to Kim for some virtual meeting protocol.
Thank you, Lindsay. Staff will control the PowerPoint presentation that includes everything submitted by the applicant by the deadline in accordance with the submittal requirements. Applicants simply need to ask staff to advance to the next slide during your presentation. Applicants, staff, and board members are required to give their name whenever speaking. Video and microphone has been disabled for all attendees. Attendees, not board members or staff, will only be given the capability to speak when they are called on during the public comment period. Chat and the Q&A functions have been disabled for everyone. For public comment, the applicants, all team members, and the public have been required to register, indicate the project they wish to comment on, and submit any documents in advance of the meeting. Just as in an in-person meeting, all applications heard today are part of the public meeting format. If you've registered to speak and will speak during the public comment portion of the meeting, you'll need to state your name and address for the record. Those members of the public that have registered will be called on in order by project. Staff will call on the registered members of the public to speak for each project. Unregistered members of the public who raise their hand will not be called on. The board members will be polled by the chairperson for their comments and for their vote on a motion. Each member, when voting, should respond yay in favor or nay not in favor. The chair shall reread the motion verbatim, and the board member making the motion should correct the chair if she has not reread the motion accurately. If the board member needs to recuse, he or she will be temporarily removed from the meeting and placed back in the meeting at the start of the next agenda item. If the board needs to go into an executive session, they'll call into a separate conference line, and all video and audio on Zoom will be temporarily turned off until they're ready to return to the regular meeting. The results and the staff comments will be posted on the city website at www.charlestonsc.gov/BAR. And finally, these proceedings are being recorded and broadcasted to the City of Charleston's YouTube channel.
Thank you, Kim. Agenda item number 1 is 5 Shepherd Street.
Thank you, Lindsay. 5 Shepherd Street is requesting final approval for complete demolition. The building's a category 4 in the East Side neighborhood, was built in 1873 and in the historic materials demolition purview area. And this slide is just for a little context to familiarize yourself with the location of the property. It's on the south side of Shepherd between Hanover and Aiken. And here's some existing site photos. This photo was taken before the sheathing and the tar paper went on that's existing today. And this is looking east on Shepherd Street and looking west. And here's some Sanborn maps. And applicants here. I believe he's calling in. Mr. Darris.
Can you hear us?
Yes,
Kim?
we can.
Okay.
Mr. Darris, we can hear you if you're ready to present.
Yes, we have this 5 Shepherd Street. We tried to rehab it. We had 2-3 contractors looking at it, and because of the foundation and the condition of the building, it wasn't rehabable. And we got a structural engineer to look at it and to see what he thinks, and looks like it's the same thing. The building has no value as far as rehabbing, and there's just kind of impossible. There's nothing of the building has left, from the siding, the door, the facade, and even the foundation is going down, basically sinking. So it is a project that basically needs to be demolished to be rebuilt. And we've tried to sell it a couple of times, and the contract fell apart because we did not have authorization from the bar to demolish it. And right now, the owner is up in age and he cannot rehab it, and he just wants to sell it and get it off his hand, because he had enough of problem with the city as far as boarding it up and keeping it clean and keeping the homeless out of it. And as you notice with the pictures, it's been basically gutted out, and there was a fire before in it. And the original structure has been added throughout the years, so there's not really nothing that represent 1870 left on that building, you know. So he's requesting to be authorized to demolish the building and be able to sell it and close that chapter on his property.
Thank you, Mr. Darris.
You're
Any board members have any questions for the applicant?
I guess I'll just ask, do you know how long the current owner has had this property?
Yes, 16 years, and he's been paying taxes on it and been trying to keep the homeless people, the drug, dealers and everything out of it. And he constantly gets called from the police, and he's been in court several times with the city of Charleston, which they're asking him either to demolish or rehab. He's not in a position to rehab it. So the best thing for him is to sell it. And now we're running into this problem that whoever wants to buy it, and they examined the building, they said this needs to be torn down. And other than that, they're not going to buy it. And in order to tear it down, we're going to have your authorization and approval in order for them to do that. So
Thank you.
he's just stuck with something,
Are there any other board questions at this time? All right. Kim, do we have any public comment on this?
We have several. We have Erin Minigan. Erin, you have the floor.
Thank you. Erin Minigan with the Preservation Society of Charleston. The Preservation Society is opposed to this request for demolition. The late 19th century house is an important part of the historic streetscape of this block of Shepherd Street. Based on the materials submitted and observation of conditions on site, the house appears to retain a significant level of historic fabric and details, as well as much of its original form. While it is unfortunate the structure has been allowed to deteriorate for an extended period of time, we feel there is a path forward for this unique historic building to be successfully rehabilitated, and ask that the board deny this request. Thank you.
well, could you guys buy it from Mr. David and preserve it the way you want it?
Mr. Darris, we're in public comment at the moment, so we'll give you a period to respond.
Okay, sorry.
Kim, who else do we have speaking?
We have Justin Schwebler.
This is Justin Schwebler. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Justin with Historic Charleston Foundation. HCF has reviewed the application for demolition of the historic Freedman's Cottage at 5 Shepherd Street. We're grateful to Kevin Everly for his research and the history of this property. The building reflects an important part of the history of the East Side in the late 1800s and early 1900s, and its orientation on the lot is a testament to the development of the neighborhood in that time period. We're sorry to see this historic structure in the neglected condition it is in today, but despite its condition, 5 Shepherd Street contributes to the historic character of the neighborhood, and we recommend denial of this application for full demolition. This being said, we acknowledge that specific parts of the building may merit demolition, and it may be reasonable to approve partial demolition based on the conditions. We do not oppose the demolition of some of the portions of the building if the majority of the historic house can be preserved. Thank you.
We also have Kevin Everly signed up to speak, but I don't see his name. If someone, if he's logged in under someone else's name, would you please raise your hand so I may call upon you? There we go.
Yep. Sorry,
Yes.
I don't know who I'm signed in under, but so I had signed up to speak 2 weeks ago when the application first came up, and my concern was really just to correct the inaccuracies from the owner about the age of the building, because it is
Oh,
Kevin?
Kevin, you're on mute.
there we go. Sorry, am I back?
Yes, you are. We can hear you.
Okay. Sorry about that. So what I was saying is I just signed up 2 weeks ago, or to speak 2 weeks ago, because I wanted to correct the inaccurate information about the age of the building. It was definitely built in 1873, and the pre-sheathing pictures demonstrate very clearly that a lot of the historic material is still intact. If you're facing the building from Shepherd Street, the section to the right is the original construction, which still has the original central chimney, which is often the first thing to go, or one of the first things to go in these little cottages. In the 1890s, it had the left-hand section added to it and the L off the back end. And you can see in the pre-sheathed sections how those portions don't have the extruded plaster keys. But that's all 19th century work. The only thing in the structural engineer's report that really was concerning had to do with the enclosed piazza and the roof of that. And you know, as you've already heard, it wouldn't be a huge loss to lose the roof of the enclosed piazza, but there's a lot of material, even just from the exterior evaluation, much less getting inside, that is still intact. And I think it would be a real shame to see the building go after the current owner has done basically nothing for 16 years. I mean, I'm sorry that he can't sell it, but right now I will happily, at this exact moment, double his investment from when he paid $17,000 for it and bought it at a tax sale. So, you know, there's money to be made. So anyway, I'm opposed to the demolition.
Thank you, Kevin. Kim, do we have any more public comment?
That's all.
All right. Now, Kim, let's go to city staff comments and recommendations.
Sure. Thank you. The city has nearly 200 vacant and dilapidated historic buildings on the peninsula, and these buildings deserve to be rehabilitated and protected. As city leaders, we're really the front line defending properties such as this one from demolition by neglect, and it certainly is contributory to the streetscape. Just a couple comments. The building does not meet the minimum standards for vacant structures per City Code Section 21-54, where a vacant building for more than 1 year is considered to be a public nuisance. A building shall not be vacant for more than 30 days by law unless the owner is maintaining the property. The building suffers severely deferred maintenance, open eaves, deteriorating sheathing, absent siding, and accessible spaces. The building should be cleared from all hazardous debris, trash, and properly mothballed or sealed from the elements and further deterioration until it's rehabilitated. So all that said, pursuant to City Code Section 54-241, the board on its own initiative may file a petition with the chief building official requesting that said officer proceed under the Public Safety and Housing Ordinance to require correction of defects or repairs to any structure, so that structure shall not experience demolition by neglect and be preserved and protected. So we recommend that be done. And staff's recommending denial with staff comments and 30 days to stabilize and secure. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Darris, now is your period of time. You have 5 minutes to respond to any of the public comment raised or the staff comments and recommendations.
Thank you, Kim. I'm going to have Mr. David talk about how much he has paid every year to maintain that place and the taxes and everything, and just shed a light, on how much, even though he paid $17,000 for it, but he has spent a lot of money to really just having that. So, Mr. David, go ahead.
It cost me $125 every week cleaning and cut the grass. It costs taxes and insurance. It costs a lot of money to reboard it because people keep tearing building down, especially the homeless goes inside. For 17 years, if I bought a property on King Street for $30,000, be worth millions right now. So if you tell me this building I pay for it $17,000, 17 years ago, $17,000 like $300,000 now or more. So I'm 72 years old. I need to do something. I cannot come to court every month telling me you have to demolish or you have to build. I don't have the money to build. So what should I do? Tell me. What should I do? Thank you.
Mr. Darris and Mr. Davitt. All right, I am now going to open it up for board discussion and a vote.
This
Okay.
is Bill. I'll go ahead and start. Yeah, I am visiting the building this morning and been reading through the information provided by the applicant and the other information provided by Mr. Everly and city staff. I do concur with city staff's conclusion. This is really a sort of a classic case of really what we try to avoid and the really neglect of some of these structures, but also potential diminishing of the character of the neighborhood, which standing on Shepherd Street this morning was quite obvious. I'm sure a lot of structures have been lost and there are a lot of towering new structures around it, but there are still a few hanging in there that are really keeping the historic context of that street viable. This is one major important piece of that. So I agree with staff's comments and staff's recommendation.
This is Julia. I agree as well. And I just feel like there's a lot of value in that little structure that's not really being appreciated by the applicants. And I could personally entertain a thoughtful request for partial demolition, because I do feel like the original core of the building and even that early extension to the east, I think those are the most vital parts, and the old porches and additions to the south are in very bad condition and have a lot of newer fabrics. So I wouldn't be opposed to some sort of application of that nature. But we've just seen too many examples of structures like this in this condition, or even worse, that get rehabilitated and really contribute to the public good. So I agree with staff.
Glenn Gardner. I agree with what my fellow board members have already stated, and I will say that I've seen this little building on Shepherd Street for a long time, and having had the opportunity now to take a peek inside of it, it is in far, far better condition than the eye from the street would lead one to believe. Even looking at the ridge line of the roof, the condition of the chimney, that's already been mentioned. It really is able to be saved and is in far better condition than a lot of what we see rehabilitated. So I cannot support demolition of the structure, and I'm very hopeful that if the current owner doesn't want to maintain and retain it, there should be a preservation-minded buyer out there who could make something really great happen with this little building. And I would be remiss for not saying that, you know, I respect the owner's desire not to continue to put money into it, but that is the property owner's responsibility when they make a decision to purchase something. You do have to maintain something to a certain standard. Otherwise, you're not being a good neighbor to the adjacent property owners and to the neighborhood. So hopefully they can find somebody who will love this little building and give it the life that it deserves.
More Wilson, I don't think I have anything to add to what my fellow board members have said, and I would reiterate something that Julia said, and that is that I think there's certainly leeway here for careful and judicious partial demolition of less significant parts of the building, but I could not support total demolition of the structure.
I'll go ahead and make a motion for denial with staff comments and requirement that the building be stabilized and secured within 30 days.
We have a motion on the floor for denial with comment and 30 days to stabilize and secure the structure. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
The motion to vote. Glenn?
Yay in favor.
Bill?
Yay in favor.
Julia?
Yay in favor.
Fillmore?
Yay in favor.
Chair votes with the majority, and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Darris and Mr. Dabbitt.
Can we add one sentence, you know, to the final thing? Hello?
No, there's
Yeah.
not an ability to add anything to the motion.
We just need help. We're gonna need help. He doesn't have the resources to stabilize it in 30 days and all that stuff.
It's a fire happening inside the whole building.
Darris, I would encourage you to reach out to Historic Charleston or the Preservation Society. I think they'd be a valuable resource for you in this instance.
Okay, Kim. Thank you. Thanks for your help. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thanks. Agenda item number 2 has been deferred. We are on agenda item number 3, 80 Alexander Street. Glenn, I believe you're recused from these. So Kim, if you would boot Glenn.
I will. We'll put him on hold. See you, Glenn. Okay. 80 Alexander Street is requesting final approval for the demolition of a modern stucco over CMU wall and non-historic low brick wall at sidewalk. The building's a category 2 in the Mazik Ragbro neighborhood. It was built in 1800 and in the Old Man Historic District. And here's a little context for you, just north of Calhoun Street on the east side. And just a little aerial. And this was taken during construction of the hotel. You can see the wall that's proposed for demolition on the left. Here are some Sanborn maps. Here's the gate on the right side. And this is a photo from 1972, which shows there is no wall there. Mr. Keys, if you want to take it from here. You have the floor.
Mr. Keys, you're on mute.
Okay, is that good?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Great. This wall housed hid a parking lot that was accessed from the south side of 80 Alexander, which was used as office building, and they drove around the backside to access this parking lot. When we first began our project, we assumed this may have been an historic wall, and we had planned to design our project to be behind that wall, which is a 12-foot high wall, very unusually high for anything really in Charleston. On a further examination, turns out that the brick wall is really a seam concrete block wall and covered with the fig vine. And so we think it'd be a friendlier design for the street if we expose the building that we're proposing to build and remove this tall masonry wall. It's not historic, and we think it will greatly enhance the neighborhood and the appearance of the house and the grounds. So we're requesting final approval for this demolition. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keys. Do we have any questions from board members for Mr. Keys? All right. Kim, do we have any public comment?
We don't have any public comment on this application.
All right, then I'll turn it over to you for city staff comments and recommendations.
Thanks, Lindsay. On May 27th, the board granted approval to extend an existing non-conforming 9-foot 6-inch brick wall with a 10-foot 6-inch piers partially around the property. Staff would be supportive of this application provided the north wall comes into compliance with the zoning ordinance and emulates the attractive wall that already partially surrounds the property. There's no compelling or extenuating circumstances to construct a 9-foot wall if there's no precedent for it. We recommend final approval with staff comment.
All right, thank you, Kim. Mr. Keys, did you have any response or need any clarification with respect to staff comments?
No, I did not. Thank you.
All right, I'll open it up for board discussion and a vote.
Nothing to add, I just agree.
Yeah, I agree too, Julia. There's really nothing special about this wall, and the brick is new as well. Seeing it this morning, if y'all are okay, I'd go ahead and make a motion for final approval with staff's comments. If y'all are okay with that.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for final approval with staff comment. Do I have a second?
Yes, I'll second it.
I'll put it to a vote. Bill Moore?
Yay in favor.
Bill?
Yay in favor.
Julia?
Yay in favor.
Chair votes as a majority, and the motion passes unanimously. So now we'll move on to agenda item number 4, which is also 80 Alexander Street. Kim, will you give us an introduction?
I'll just quickly say that this is the same building and turn it again over to Glenn Keys.
All right.
Thank you. So 80 Alexander began its history as a 3-story building, but like many buildings in Charleston, it lost its 3rd floor in the earthquake, and the cornice and roof was rebuilt as you see presently. The owners who just purchased the building would like to have an addition to the north side into this parking lot. As we discussed, instead of having the concrete block wall, but to have an appropriate dependency style structure, not unlike what you might see at the Aiken Rat House, where the carriage house is turned long ways to the street. We're proposing to separate the structure with a hyphen from the main house. And Kim, if you'd like to go to the next slide, please. So these are the existing conditions. Maybe we should go on to the proposed drawings on.
Glenn, what did you say was the precedent for the
The
carriage house?
Aiken Red
Oh.
House. Also, the Swordgate House on Trad Street is another similar kind of condition. So we're proposing two one-story additions, only one of which would be visible from the street, which would be a, on the street side would be a master bedroom suite with a courtyard separating a pool house outdoor space on the east side. We'd be connecting to the building in two locations through and would expect really the first floor is the main living space. As you may know, to the south of this property is the new hotel. So the piazza will be retained and will be the primary entrance. But obviously that would not be very desirable social space looking to the parking lot of the hotel. So everything has now been oriented to the north side for the families living, and it's a relatively small house, 2 stories, and we're proposing this addition, these 2 additions. Kim, next. The elevation of the 1-story building with a slate roof and parapets on the ends. The gate in the middle would be, for the hyphen, would just be storage for the necessary things like, trash cans and recycling, and possibly just bike storage. But it's just a way to separate and isolate the main house from the dependency. Next. So from the south, you can just see it peeking out the pool house, but it's really not visible because of the hotel. It's on this side. Next slide. From the rear and from the, right, okay.
All right.
So we're requesting conceptual approval. Let me know if you have any other questions, please.
Thank you, Mr. Key. Do we have any board questions at this time?
Then I'd just like to hear you explain a little more about, you said you had originally considered leaving the wall, thinking it's historic, and pushing the addition back beyond that. Can you just tell me again, like, why that notion fell off the radar? I mean, whether or not the wall is historic, just that kind of paradigm of having these additions kind of more recessed and private.
Well, we just felt like that, first of all, that's not a very friendly street front with that tall wall as it's built right currently. As I said, we originally thought it was a historic wall. We saw some brick peeking through on that corner pier. It's so covered with big vine, it's hard to determine initially whether it was historic. We was assuming it was, and in further examination decided it was not. And just feel like this is a better scale to the street to have an exposed building as opposed to a solid wall. Had we done so, we would have lost, obviously, it wouldn't be windows in that wall. It would just been a solid wall. So
Right.
I think this is a better solution for the street.
Okay, thank you.
Any other board questions at this time?
Fillmore Wilson here. Glenn, is this masonry construction?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Kim, do we have any public comment?
We have Aaron Minigan.
Thank you. Erin Minigan with the Preservation Society of Charleston. The Preservation Society would like to thank the applicant for reaching out to us on this proposal. We are generally comfortable with the approach, which positively infills a current gap in the streetscape. However, we feel the footprint of the frontmost addition is a bit wide and should be narrowed to better relate to the pattern of primarily narrow frontage buildings along the block. Also, the wall and gate between the primary house and front addition is too close to the front of the property and diminishes the hyphen effect between the two buildings. We feel that this should be set back at least 3 feet to help break up the long frontage. Thank you.
And we also have Justin Schwebler.
This is Justin with Historic Charleston Foundation. HCF is pleased to support the design for the new single-story addition at 80 Alexander. We find that this addition is appropriately scaled to the surrounding historic structures. It's complementary in architectural form to historic examples of similar structures throughout the city and does not detract from the main house. The joining of the two structures will also have a minimal impact on the historic fabric of the main house, which is commendable, and we recommend conceptual approval for the construction of this single-story addition. Thank you.
And we have Keen Steel signed up. I don't see any Keen Steels in the attendees. So if you're signed up on a different name, can you please raise your hand to be recognized? And I don't see any hands.
Is that it for public comment?
That's all we have.
All right, well then I will turn it over to you for city staff comments and recommendations. Kim?
Thank you, Lindsay. The concept of an addition to this historic house is certainly reasonable, and the height, scale, and mass and architectural direction is appropriate. While siting is somewhat atypical, there are precedents of street parallel secondary buildings at historic buildings. Further, the lot provides no other option for expansion, and this design is handsome, relates to the street with simple detailing and modest proportions. That said, the gate and wall should recess further to break the linear frontage. The stairs should be relocated within that courtyard to the new construction side to avoid further penetration into the historic wall, which will also allow the hyphen to be further assessed. And the additional opening into the original historic north wall of the building for a pair of doors to the terrace should be moved into the breakfast room to retain as much intact fabric as possible in accordance with the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. So the staff are recommending conceptual approval with staff comments and final review by staff.
Thank you, Kim. Mr. Keys, did you have any response to the public comment or the city staff comments and recommendations, or any clarification?
No, I do not. Thank you.
All right, I'll open it up for board discussion and a vote at this point.
Would you mind scrolling back just to that streetscape again? For reference. I'm trying to bond with this. It is unusual, and generally the secondary buildings that are on the street are perpendicular to the main Rams mother house, if you will. So I'm just having a little trouble, but I recognize that it's an unusual situation, and I completely understand why the owners would want to add some living space. And I appreciate the modest scale of this. Yeah, it's just that I'm having trouble with the facade that faces the street, just the portions of it, the fact that it's a closet and a toilet room looking at the street. I don't know, just struggling a little bit, but I'm curious to see what other board members think.
This is Bill. I have I guess a quick question for Kim first, regarding staff's comment number 2. And it's a reiteration of the comment I believe that Glenn had made as well. And he did cite some specific examples, but I didn't know if staff had any further examples, say mid-block examples of something like this. While citing is somewhat atypical, there are precedents of street parallel secondary buildings, historic buildings. I wanted to, and in my mind, it's telling me, yes, I've seen them as well, but I'm having a hard time pulling it up. Did you have any specific examples of this type of siting, call it more in a mid-block condition?
No, I as well thought of the Aiken Rat House and the Swargate House. That's all.
Yeah, okay. That part, really aside from my comments about, or any comments I will or would make about the design itself, that part is a little bit out of context. If the only example citing are these, grand homes and grand properties, this is more of a mid-block scenario here. So that is a little bit atypical, and I'm weighing that in. I believe that might be what's weighing on Julia as well. I don't want to speak for you, Julia, but that's kind of what's weighing on me. But I believe I could get past it if I believe your staff's comment number 3 is really viable, and I believe that echoes some of the other comments made by Preservation Society about the gate and the wall recessing. I believe I could get my arms around this to the point of agreeing with staff's comments and recommendation, with definitely with emphasis on staff's comment number 3.
Yeah, and I'll just add to my comments before. That's why I was asking about the wall, because I think a nicely detailed masonry wall can be sort of friendly to pedestrians. And if it were my compound, I might like to have that sort of buffer between my master closet and the street, a little 5-foot garden space in between there. But again, my mind is still open. Maybe Fillmore will solve everything.
I have, I think, probably the same reaction when I looked at it. At first, I think it's very handsome. But my immediate reaction is that even though not unprecedented, this is unusual in Charleston to have a linear building in the same plane along the street as the front of the main building. And so I started looking at the site plan pretty carefully. And I mean, certainly you could put a very attractive lower wall in there with a hyphen and try to move that building back. But the more I looked at it, the more I think that there's not a lot of space behind it. And then you create to move it back some, you create a small space, you're going to need some kind of a wall or a fence. And to me, that probably, I'm not sure exactly how you deal with that small space between a barrier along the sidewalk and that building, pushing it back just a few feet. If you rotated it, you fundamentally lose the courtyard and the ability to do anything with the courtyard. And so as Bill said, the more I look at this, sort of the more I can get my head around why it's this way. And even though I would certainly prefer to see it not in the same plane as the main house, I'm not sure I can really come up with a really stellar option to doing it that way. And to add, I agree with staff's comments, as Bill said. I think they're important, and I agree with the comments about the penetrations and the impact on the historic fabric and the north wall of the main house.
Julia, I'd be willing to try a motion if you're okay. Mm-hmm. You okay?
Yep.
All right. I'll go ahead and make a motion for conceptual approval with staff's comments and final review by staff.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for conceptual approval with staff comments and final review by staff. Do I have a second?
Must be the final review by staff part.
No.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I mean, that's, we're really not asking for any significant change. I mean, staff is not asking for a significant visual change here other than at the hyphen, which I'm assuming Mr. Keys would work with staff on that. I still have some reservations about it, even though I think it's a very handsome design. I will second your motion, Bill.
Put it to a vote. Julia,
I'm going to say nay, opposed on this one.
Bill,
Yeah, in favor.
Fillmore.
Yay in favor.
To vote yay in favor. Well, and the motion passes with 3 voting for and 1 against. Thank you, Mr. Keith.
Thank you.
Kim, if you will bring Glenn back in, please.
I will.
All right. Glenn is back. So moving on to agenda item number 5, 166 Wentworth Street. Kim?
Thank you, Lindsay. 166 Wentworth Street is requesting final approval for modifications to the fenestration on rear addition. It's a category 2, and that's why it's before you today in the Harleston Village neighborhood, constructed in 1809 and in the Old and Historic District. Here's just an aerial to get your bearings on the north side of Wentworth. And here's a great image of the front left side of the house. And this is the side in question. This is looking west on Wentworth Street and looking east on Wentworth Street. Here are the Sanborn maps. And if Ms. Clark Glidewell wants to take it from here, you have the floor.
Hi, I'm here. Shelley Clark Glidewell, the Clark Glidewell architect. What you see in front of you is the plans of the process that we've gone through. The first floor existing plan shows an existing window that is in the rear addition now. And then the second plan shows the window that was approved, that was previously submitted to BAR. And then the third floor plan shows the proposed windows in yellow. So we have, and they're transom windows, which we can see in the next drawing. If we can move to that drawing. I think it's the next one, yeah. Well, that's the existing, so we go on to the next. And then that's the proposed, that's the one that was actually approved. So this is what has been approved by BAR. And then the next elevation shows our request to add additional windows on this side. We're asking because the owner's looking for more light. We do have windows on the north side and the west side, but we have a house that's really close to the on the west side, so the adjacent property pretty much blocks the sun coming in there, but they get good morning light on this side going into that new kitchen addition. There's a lot of already, as you can see, there's a lot of windows on that east elevation, so this is adding to that. And there was extra, like I noted before, there was a window basically in that location. We've worked closely with staff to get this configuration, trying to make the windows more vertical. So we've come to this design, which we do like, the owners like. The windows do have to be hour rated, 1 hour fire rated, because they're within 3 feet of the property line. So we have submitted photos and some details of fire tech. Oh, this isn't actually just kind of showing, it's actually pretty far. We already seen this before when we submitted. It's pretty, there's a parking lot on the side. So you can see how those windows would be affected. If you go on to the, yeah, these are fire tech windows. And we have to use the 1 hour rated window, which is the ceramic glass, the steel frame. That mutton is the true divided light. I believe they have that as a true divided light. They have one that's also, and that's actually quite big. I believe it's 1 15/16 inches. So it's almost 2 inches. It's pretty big mutton there. And then they have a 5/8 that they can use, but it's, they never really sent me a detail on that. And they're kind of saying it's inside. So I'm thinking it's inside the actual, on the interior. And I've tried to get a sample of this window. I haven't been able to get one. That is ceramic glass. We're trying to be as clear as we can get. And one thing we do have, I believe, I emailed Preservation Society, Historic Charleston Foundation, and they had no objections to our modifications. I think that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Clark-Glidewell. I'm going to open it up. Excuse me, are there any board questions? And I actually have one to start. So the window that was approved back in November, that is not going to be, that's not going to be installed, correct?
Correct. That window, we took it out, and actually it would have been to the, that window right there. That's gone. We've totally taken that out.
Okay, thank you.
My question is about that window as well. That was proposed to be a traditional wood window, correct?
It was, and no, and I went further, and I probably would have been told by the building department that would have had to been changed.
Well, I think you're allowed to sort of transfer the existing opening just to another location, but maybe now you've gone above the area of the existing.
Well, yes, that's
openings.
true. We did keep the original, that proposed window was a little bit smaller than the other window. And so, yes, it is. It was probably approved because of existing conditions.
Any other board questions at this time? All right, moving on to public comment. Kim, do we have anyone from the public here?
We don't.
Well, we have one. Well, we had one letter.
We do have one letter.
Yeah.
Lindsay, do you have that letter?
I do not. I do not seem to have a public comment folder.
Uh-oh.
I mean, I could send it over, Kim. I don't know if that'll help.
I've got it right here. Lindsay, would you like to read this?
I would love to. We have a letter dated July 7th, 2021 to the BAR-BZA board members. The reference kitchen addition proposed at 166 Wentworth Street. I am the neighbor at 164 Wentworth Street, and I have reviewed the revised plan for windows on the east elevation of the kitchen addition. I have no objection to the proposed changes. Sincerely, Can you scroll down, Kim? PC Coker. And again, their address is 164 Wentworth Street. Is that all we have, Kim?
That is.
All right, well, I'll turn it over to you for city staff comments and recommendations.
Thank you. We just have a few. The proposed new window at the south end of the kitchen will be in the existing portion of the house and essentially replaces a window on the existing wall. The proposed window at the north end of the kitchen will be in the new construction portion and essentially replaces the window in the new design, which received approval on November 11th, 2020. Several atypical windows already exist on the east elevation of the house, which is the non-piazza side. The location of the proposed windows is high on the wall without affecting the privacy of adjacent properties, which is a positive. And the proposed window is stylistically inappropriate and should be reconsidered for a product that is more residential in nature with a raised mutton profile. But the staff is recommending final approval with window selection revisited and reviewed by staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Ms. Clark-Gladwell, did you want to respond to any of the staff comments and recommendations or have any clarification?
No, I think I'm good. Thank you.
All right, I'll open it up for board discussion and a vote.
I don't necessarily have any problem with adding more windows in this location, but the catch is, the type of window that's allowed there does get pretty weird when you go over the existing opening area and have to shift to these fire rated units. But I think I'm okay trusting staff to work through that and make adjustments as needed.
I feel the same way, and I think that if staff is comfortable with their own recommendation with regard to having the applicant work with them, if you all think that there is a viable solution that can be achieved, then I am comfortable going along with the staff recommendation here.
Yeah, this is Bill. I agree with the emphasis really primarily being on the windows. Yeah, I don't think these windows are going to give the desired appearance, especially on a residential structure. Also a little disconcerting to me that one window location shown here on this page, the left window, that's sort of engaging that corner board that I'm sure we were looking to have come all the way down to, properly show the sequence of additions. I didn't look at the floor plan to see if that could be shifted over slightly. So yeah, I agree. The primary concern being the windows, and again, I think Julia, you might have even said it's a catch-22 because it's going to be required to be that fire-rated glass. So I would say ultimately I'm fine, getting it back to staff. But the one thing I would maybe suggest would be if their staff concludes there is a reasonable solution for a fire-rated sash through this application, I would just ask if staff could sort of share that information with the board ultimately, so we would have a better understanding of the options potentially approvable for this type of assembly, because it's important. That's all.
I'm trying to think, I've only ever been forced to do one fire rated window like that, and it was just a very small square with no mutton bars, so it was kind of easy to conceal its weirdness. And while we're talking about it, the transom that was approved before is a fairly traditional configuration of the two light horizontal thing. I mean, wouldn't two of those maybe be nicer than the two sort of squished pairs? I don't know. But I'm perfectly comfortable letting it go to staff. So I'm just going to try to make a motion here for final approval with window selection revised and reviewed by staff.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for final approval with window selection revised and reviewed by staff. Do I have a second?
Second, Glenn.
This motion to a vote. Bill,
Yay in favor.
Fillmore,
Yay in favor.
Julia,
Yay in favor.
Glenn.
In favor.
Chair votes with the majority and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Clark-Gladwell.
Thank you.
All right, agenda item number 6 has been withdrawn.
Number 6 has been withdrawn.
Last minute.
Oh, okay.
Agenda item number 7 has also been withdrawn. We are on agenda item number 8, 42 Charlotte Street. Kim, give an introduction.
Thank you, Lindsay. 42 Charlotte Street is requesting preliminary approval for the new construction of a duplex at the rear. The building's a category 2 in the Mazik-Ragboro neighborhood and was built in 1831 at the front of the lot, and it's in the Old and Historic District. And here's the lot in question. It's a deep lot on the north side of Charlotte between Elizabeth and Alexander. And here's some existing site photos. You can see the place that is in questions right here. And this is down the other side of the house. And this is looking west on Charlotte. I'm sorry, that was looking east on Charlotte and west on Charlotte. And here's the here's the survey card from the 1970s, some Sanborn maps. You can see in this one, there was a conservatory with a glass roof right here as early as 1902. And if Mr. Hughley wants to take it from here, John Paul, you have the floor.
Kim, you may have just said this, but also for purposes of clarification, this is a request for preliminary approval, not conceptual.
That's right.
Hey, Kim, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is 42 Charlotte duplex in the back. Kim, could you move to the drawings, page 1 of the drawings? So we did a little bit of model. One of the questions that popped up last time, are these actual drawings or the? But one of the questions that popped up, number 1 on your staff comments last time was, what's really visible from a public right of way? And Kim's right, they visited the site, Kim and Tori visited the site, and you will be able to see the conservatory right there, Kim, that one you just hit.
Site plan?
Page 1, no, you're on page 1. Just we did a little model, it's not great, but it basically gives you page 1. We'll give you what it would look like from Charlotte Street. So you will be able to see the conservatory just to the left. You will be able to see the western part of the roof, but you will not be able to see anything on the first floor from any public right away. There's a wall that we built a couple of years ago that's there, which Kim's touching. So the question that came up in number 2 and 3 of y'all's comments last time, can you go to page, why don't we go on to page 9 might be good, just to see how far it sits back. Was how far does the structure sit back? So the top there is the old proposal. The westernly wall we weren't showing any penetrations at that point. The bottom is more the conservatory to the left that you would see. But the real concern was from staff, even though it was sitting 200 feet back, was the depth of the building. So we reduced the depth of the building 3 feet. Even though you won't see that depth, it will translate into the roof length. So kind of up the roof, if you imagine looking down the driveway, and that part of the roof will be visible, just the western part. You'll of course see the conservatory. The conservatory was much larger from this view right here. You can see how it almost touched the ridge of the roof. It was a big solid mass. It was facing west. No one would see this view, but we were proposing that as we started designing this conservatory that we'd block a lot of that western light, but it was both cleared by the city in number 8 of y'all's staff comments that let's open up this side. And the architects working with the students from the American College, some selected students, some are graduates, and the visiting architects per architect really agreed that this whole western wall needed to be opened up, and we'll treat it with some trees and filter some of that light. Kim, will you go on to page, let's go to 15, look at the elevation that will be seen. This is the old elevation. Looking that let's go to 15. This was the old elevation. It was very boxy. The conservatory, which will be seen on the left, was a placeholder we were working with. But we did a great charrette with a number of architects. Bobby McAlpin was the one that came and led this. And he agreed with you that that conservatory to the left needed to be taken down in height and a little smaller, but also his kind of design guidelines for the graduates were it needs to be mother-child. They need to have a rhythm with their window pattern that needs to be similar, and they need to be kind of the timber frame brick structure should be the primary, and it should be nestled up there. So go to the 16, Kim, please. So you can see at the conservatory point, which I think y'all's conservatory point was number 7 on your list. It's down there underneath, was you wanted to possibly make it a little bit more whimsical or folly-like were your words, but we also need to exhaust that heat. Mr. McAlpin has done a number of these conservatories, and he said he's had clients literally want to take them back off the building. So the key thing is these cupolas or lanterns allow actual heat to rise up and come out, and that was very important in the design. You saw it in the last one, you see it in this one. Most important to us at the Building Arts is the blacksmiths never really get a chance to shine except for their ironwork on their gates, and we really wanted this building to be the blacksmith building. So in working with Mr. McAlpin and windows, they were able to keep that same window pattern across the entire structure all the way up to the cupola. So that really is what drove the charrette weekend was let's define windows and how do you build metal windows, because we at the college teach wood window construction, but we haven't had an opportunity to really show off on metal windows. So this really picked up, and he thought that from reading your comments and the professors at our college in architecture, which are online and we'll be able to talk a little bit, would help define the front of this building. Staying there just so I can hit the other points. The depth was seen here. So comment number 2 and 3 of your last time was that the building might appear a little bit deep. This is a working class part of the neighborhood. I had shown y'all sandboard map studies of really deep buildings being behind these this working class neighborhood. So we did bring the depth of the building down 3 feet, which allowed for that roof to shorten. But you asked in number 2, would you consider dormers? We had already done dormer studies and kind of ruled them out, but we agreed with you during the charrette that dormers should be brought back to help break up some of that mass, but also for fire purposes, those are bedrooms on the 2nd floor. We really need to have access out of the western bedroom. So those dormers are really wall dormers. They start at about 42 inches off the floor. So that helps solve that problem. And also on this facade, although you won't see this, below those 2 left dormers are 2 new windows. If you flip back to page 15, Kim, you'll see those really were carriage doors. Y'all had a lot of concern here that those doors were kind of loading docks, I think the word was, and they weren't grounded, and we agreed. We were trying to come up with a cool way to use the carriage doors, but it just kept fighting us. So using the timber frame that we're using on the inside, we were able to turn that, not only the left carriage door and the right carriage door, into a better rhythm. You can go back to 16 now. Again, although you won't see it from the street, those 2 windows to the west or to the left of the door, we redefined an entrance, a single entrance, which allowed us to bring the conservatory down and kept the window pattern similar and equal. We cleaned up and made the cupola more centered, which was something that worked. Basically, one of the professors can talk about it, was something we found out during the charrette, that we could use more of a little classic modeling there in the middle and bring that too. We, in the dormers, let's go to Kim, that answers most of those. The conservatory question on the left, more whimsical, more folly-like. The roof is not straight, it's curved, so you don't get boxy kind of fabricators. You really get our true blacksmithing department to show a little bit of their architectural design, not only in the windows, which are obviously straight, but the roof line has just a slight pitch to it, which is nice. Why don't we jump to page 20, Kim, and talk about the comment number 4 and number 6, really 4. This was the east side. You can see the old was, we weren't sure where those windows were going. We battled them back and forth in the past. We were, they definitely were much more horizontal. They did not have a vertical plane. Luckily, Bobby McAlpin came in the charrette and helped quickly change that up. As you can see, it was awesome. It was he's like, it's got to be opened up on both the east side and the west side. You got to get light in there. You can see the window inspiration down below. Was kind of where we were starting to say, hey, we got to have the right proportions here. And he said, you got to continue it all through the building. So every light of glass in the building is exactly the same, and is stitched together. That was your comment on number 4, I think, was really, restudy and balance the windows out. And every window pretty much around the building on the first floor is almost the same. It's definitely the same window size. And then I've already addressed, I've already addressed the other comment, number 6, with the cupola a little bit, that you can see it was wider and taller. He agreed that the window detail had to be worked out first, and then you're going to repeat those windows upstairs. So can we jump back to now 16, Kim, page 16? So we had to wait to the very end to put the cupola back on because it was bigger and larger. And I think one of the comments was scale it down. So we were able to do that once we got the window pattern. So I think we got through most everything. The west wall I hit early on. You wanted it opened. It's hard. We try to model this a couple ways. The black lines of the brick are showing out. I'm really thinking I want to wash that brick with a lime wash to help make it subtle. I've had a hard time rendering it here. We'll do another wash for the next time to kind of show it. The window above the center entrance, we've done probably 10 different studies of those. It needs to be simplified. Preservation Society, I think, has said that as well. We're going to work with Kim to kind of let her see the 10 or so studies we've done, but they're a little bit, we haven't loved anything there yet, to be honest. That was probably the least of it. And then working with a neighbor, there was a few other comments besides staff. We have a neighbor in the back, and he wanted to make sure that we have no light noise penetrating from that conservatory, because they will see that. They're set back. But we have been working with them as well on the drainage comment they made last time. We have a civil engineer making sure our drainage will go to the street. And I think mostly we're here. I've got one student, rising student online that can answer questions, more details. He's been working with us for a year. And one of the faculty that's an architect will be online as well. The other thing is we had a lot of comments last time, or a lot of letters of support. I just resent it out to everybody again, so you don't have to read all those again, but just sent a summary, and everybody had said that they're still in support. I think other ones may have been mailed in, but that took up a lot of our time last time. Okay, I think with that, I will turn it back to you. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Hughley. Any questions from board members?
This is Bill. I have one question. John Paul, are these windows operable?
Yes, they are.
What's the operation?
They're going to be casement windows, but casement.
Yeah. So even these large windows are operable?
Some of the windows on the first floor are not operable, Bill. Definitely all the conservatory are not. I know that there's doors. If you look at the plan, you can see where the doors are in the conservatory. So they're fixed. The windows up in the cupolas, they pivot. They're not casement. I don't know what you call that, where they're pivoting in the middle. And then, and the reason I paused on the second floor, we have to get the fire code right. And we've got plenty of room to get people in and out. But there was a question of making a smaller, window inside of a window. Does that make sense? So part of it's operable. I don't know that we're going to do that. If we can, Bobby McAlpin was showing us how to do windows properly. And so I'm going to let them kind of lead the window design, but they're a casement, if that's what you're asking.
Okay, thank you. And then I guess one more. So I believe in your discussion about the doors then, can you go back, Kim, to that sort of primary elevation? The doors are also metal, or are they?
There are. Everything is metal.
Everything's metal.
Yep.
How about the panels at the base of the door?
Yep,
What-
they're metal too. They're going to be
They're metal? Okay.
a beautiful
Okay.
panel. I've got a picture of one we saw in Italy that was inspiration kind of there, but
Okay. Great. Thank you. I just want to make sure I was reading everything correctly. Thank you.
You good, Bill?
Yeah.
You know, maybe I am missing something, but when we do new construction these days, we just automatically assume that all the fenestration is required to be impact resistant. So I'm curious how you were planning to address that concern.
good question. We are hoping to not to have something that puts over the windows, maybe not shutters, but something that's added in. There's been a big debate about that right now. I don't want a very thick panel there, but there is some research going into that, Julia, right now to see how we can leave it open and not busy up the front.
And then that feature that's over the main entry door, like it reads as if it's some sort of bay projection, but it's not in the plan or the side elevation. So I was just curious what that is.
I think I heard you, it broke up, but did you say, does it project? It doesn't, it does project. It's kind of like a bay window, if you will, coming off the front, but it's not in the side elevation. Is that what you're saying?
Right, or the plan. I was just trying to figure out.
Yeah, that's probably Julia, but I bet that window will change in the next round. I'll be willing. I mean, I know the preservation side said they didn't love it. I just don't want to go with a typical fan-like window there. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of us, working back and forth on what would look good there. We did do a projected entire window there, but it didn't look right. So it's an area of work.
And I'm understanding, I think that there are a number of architects like informally consulting, but you're kind of the main designer of this. Is that right?
The goal is to bring together the graduates really of the American College and have them build something in Charleston. And with each part of this, let's say window design, I knew we would use Bobby if he would agree at McAlpin because he's my favorite at window design. So he did come in and do his window charrette for a weekend. He's got this back in his lap right now to make any comments on roof. Jack Duncan, Professor Duncan, that runs our architectural classical programs online right now. So he'll be able to jump in. He's been working on the roof of this, the dormers. We've had a number of dormer studies that we've had 7. This is our favorite. Kim asked us to do one that's attached. Kim, you want to run down to the last page? I think it's attached. You told me to include it just in case. To maybe not make that a shed roof, but maybe a gabled. We included, yeah, there it is. So the left, you can see, so this is the one that's might have more of a hipped roof. I personally think it makes it more busy. We've done Andrew Gould recommended kind of an arched or eyebrow, and I didn't love those. So the shed, can you go up one and see if there's one above it? Yeah, I like this one. This is the one that you're seeing in the real drawings, but Kim asked me to look at both because this, it's going to be really a question to you guys. This is the one that we propose is the one I like personally.
So let me ask you one more question while we're here. Looking at that on the main front elevation, it reads like those shed dormers go all the way up to the main ridge, but on the side elevation, it doesn't. But is the side elevation correct that it engages the main roof about halfway up?
No, I think it goes, Steve will be on here as well. I'm pretty sure it goes.
Can everybody hear me?
Oh yeah.
Hi, my name is Steve Fancelli. I'm going into my senior year at the American College, and I've been working with John Paul on this since January. The reason on the side that those sheds appear to only go halfway up.
Parapet?
Yeah, it's partly the parapet, and also they've got a slight swoop to them. And okay. So if you look at the shed roof inspiration number 3, you can kind of see it's got that swoop in there, and that's kind of what we're trying to achieve with these dormers as well, to really cut down on their impact from the western and eastern views.
Okay, thank you. And I have one final question for Kim. Did you say they were asking for preliminary?
Yes, preliminary approval.
Have they met those submittal requirements, like sections and stuff? Wall sections?
Oh, back. So we don't have a, Kim, we don't have a wall section. We have just the section through the building.
Yeah, so technically, no, they don't, Julia.
Sorry, I'm sure you really want to come back multiple more times. I was just trying to get that clear.
No, I mean, getting clear direction from you guys in any direction at any point is good. So, you know, if you want us to come back again, we'll be glad to. Just, we're already working on structural and other stuff, so I'm happy to bring you the wall sections and stuff, but at least comment on where we are. We're in the right direction.
I guess that.
Oh, go ahead, Bill.
Sorry. I'm sorry, Glenn. I'm cutting on you. Well, just to that point, you were just making, John Paul, the construction is it solid masonry? In other words, here's my question, what I'm getting around to. These sort of end parapet walls, the thickness of those, let's say where the shed dormers are shown. It's shown that brick facade going all the way up. However, it's also shown here on the side of the dormers, which I'm sure you're probably not going to be doing.
Yeah.
So it's where we would see the thickness of that wall there, all those details. So is it indeed all thorough masonry construction? Is it masonry veneer? What is it?
Good point, Bill. I'm glad you asked. Because it's an American college and we do need to teach good details and different details, you'll see it next time in the brickwork. The brickwork is actually a double wide with a pocket of air brick masonry. So there's no cinder block behind it. It actually has a reinforced rebar in it. Been working with an engineer for over a year on how they do these details. So it will be a solid brick bonded wall with reinforced. And then to answer your question, yeah, we've struggled on the side, but everybody agrees, including Mr. McAlpin, that brick has to come up the wall and it has to turn and go back. It cannot be a wood, different material that comes together. It's a hard detail. It's going to be really worked out. Our engineers are working on the way that brick will land onto the timber actual going up that wall. So it's a focus of where we are, but right now it's definitely not leaning to be two different materials. It will be brick and turn the corner.
So may I ask, have you found precedent for that?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it plenty of times, but historically, or you mean presently?
Historically.
No, I don't know if I've looked, Bill, but I will. Have you seen it without it? Just brick like a facade and the wood? Okay. We had it that way and I didn't like it. And Bobby McAlpin agreed it needs to turn. Every architect on board, including Jack, who's online with us, has agreed that it needs to turn. It's just going to be a hard detail. So it's definitely something we have to study.
Thanks. Julia, I'm sorry.
No, I'm good. I was going to ask about the sidewalls too, but I'm good.
I have a question about the planter walls that are shown in the front, and I'm trying to understand, is there a subterranean level to the building?
Yeah, it's always had that. It's why y'all asked last time, was the building floating? Let's go to, Julie, go to Kim, go to a plan view. So it's probably page, either it's page 7 or 12. So Glenn, to get light in, proper light downstairs and get access to get people out of the basement, we need light wells and they're defined pretty clear about how big and wide without putting ladders down to them. So Mackey Hill locally showed us different references of historic ones that had been designed in Charleston and been used, and the students worked and we did a drawing of how those windows will work. But to make them not be out in the parking area, this thing you were seeing before you called a loading dock is really a planter area that will hold those light wells or hide those light wells. So can you see in that drawing to the right how it kind of wraps the building? Plants will be on either side of it, and there'll be you won't see it when you walk up, but if you came up to the flower bed and looked down, you would look down into a light well that allows light into the basement. Does that make sense?
I guess so. So it's really 3 stories.
Yeah, so I'm on high ground there, and I'm having to use the basement as part of my, when we took away more and more square feet, we're having to use the basement, so yes.
So you're at what, 5,700 square feet, give or take?
No, probably about let's see, what is it? It's 20. Steve, are you online? Do you have the footprint is 21? Oh, because the conservatory is not two-story, of course. In the front, it's just the main mass that is the actual, that will go to the basement. Is that the ground level? Yeah, yeah, that's it.
And then do you flood proof? I mean, how do you can just build below grade?
Yeah, so we're on high ground, Glenn. I was worried about it too, but I worked with engineers already to do testing back there to see how low we can go. And we've already gotten down almost 10 feet, and we haven't hit water table yet. They did hit the water table at the Bennett at 6 feet, and they're supposedly higher up than us. And they did hit it even lower down at the Hilton. So in the front building, the primary structure on this property has a full basement as well. I know it sounds weird in Charleston, but it's we feel confident that we will build the wall, so we'll have a full, we'll have least storage and use of the first floor basement area.
No, I just didn't know that it was permittable.
By who?
Well, just based on the fact that you'd be down at a 7 floor level down there or something. I mean, I know it's a very high.
Glenn, sorry.
I guess I'm just verifying that you can build legally, not legally, but
he must be in an X zone, Glenn. Must be an X zone.
I'm in an X zone, Glenn, and it's okay. I haven't heard. I mean, I've worked with engineers and everybody on this project, so I'm a little alarmed if somebody's going to tell me now that we're this.
No, and I mean, if that's allowed, I just didn't realize you could.
Yeah, we don't see it much in Charleston, but the front house, for example, is full on basement. We never had a problem. So
there's a plan at that level, is there not? Or no?
Yeah, it's just a basic plan. You can go back. Let's see. What page is it? Just go back, Kim, maybe 2 pages. Let's see. Yeah, there you go. It's page 11. Did that answer it?
Yeah, take that bed off the drawing.
Okay.
I don't think the windows down there are going to meet egress.
Well, that's what my.
They do meet egress. I did work with the engineers to make sure they do meet egress.
Oh, okay.
So we did it for that purpose.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other board?
They've done that. My first dorm room at Clemson was subterranean like that, so I can't say anything.
If there's no other board questions, I'll move to public comment. Kim, do we have anyone speaking?
We do. We have Mr. Jack Duncan.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
We can.
Great. My name is Jack Duncan. I am the chair of classical architecture and design at the American College of the Building Arts. I was brought on just a few months ago just to kind of help lead some of the kind of general architectural direction. I've enjoyed listening to your comments, and I obviously am maybe a little bit more intimate with the behind the scenes of this project than maybe some of you are. I think a lot of the comments are based on the fact of the kind of process that we're trying to do here, where we're using students and graduates and disparate design professionals to kind of design one building. That's pretty unusual, and it offers certainly its own kind of difficulties. There's a reason you typically have a lead designer or a chief architect or what have you. So I think, some of the graphic problems and some of that stuff comes from our push really to use students in a really practical way, which is kind of the fundamental essence of ACBA. So with that aside, I just wanted to kind of offer just a couple of comments on what I've kind of done with the project, and would love to hear some comments on what you guys think overall with the general architectural direction. So, I helped clarify kind of the first floor plan, the roof. We did some of the dormer studies. I know some of you guys are getting into the kind of constructional assemblies and things like that, which are super important, and certainly something we've been thinking about in a more general way. I think it would have been nice certainly to have a technical section here. I think that would have helped clarify several things. I do hope that the board and other members associated with the board would be able to come up to the college at some point and kind of see what our students do there. I was able to do my undergrad at CFC in historic preservation, and went on to Notre Dame for my master's in architecture. And only when I left the city did I realize how special and interesting and amazing it is to have a school like ACBA in the city, and have artisans doing real hand work in a world that seems to be kind of industrialized convention. And I think if you all are able to come up and visit us and kind of see students working, it's quite amazing. And I think it would be even more amazing if the city would kind of show an interest and kind of engage with the school in a more meaningful way, that can maybe kind of help bring back some of these traditional methodologies of construction. I want to show full support, mostly based on the fact that we don't have anything of this, caliber as far as the craftsmanship that's gone into this at such an early stage in the city. And it would be super beneficial for the city to have something that's handmade in the city, as well as having an element within the city that the students can come and see what it looks like when designers and engineers and students and craftspeople truly work in a more collaborative way to kind of bring something like this to fruition. That being said, I think all of your comments have been, the exact comments that I think the students, myself, John Paul, we need to hear, as far as some of the direction that it's going. And I think there's a couple of things that are just merely placeholders, like the window above the carriage entry, and things like that. So yeah, I mean, I wanted to thank you for giving me a little bit of time to speak, and I hope that what comes out of this is at least some really good, narrow, kind of poignant direction, based on certain things that you see that you think are appropriate or inappropriate, and can kind of critique those things that we can in the next round really kind of sharpen and get right. So thank you so much for letting me speak.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan. Kim, do we have anyone else speaking from the public?
We do. We have Erin Minigan.
Thank you, Erin Minigan with the Preservation Society of Charleston. The Preservation Society would like to thank the applicant for their continued communication on this project and the thoroughness of their study and outreach to stakeholders. We do feel this design has shown improvement from the previous iteration, in particular, the symmetry of the facade and incorporation of dormers is positive. However, we do continue to struggle with the size of the building and feel the footprint should be reduced to allow the building to be more subordinate. We appreciated the board discussion at the previous meeting and agreed with comments made about how the architecture should not be conjectural and the building should be more of an honest expression of itself as a dwelling. To that end, we feel the architectural direction is too ornate and should be simplified to be more reflective of its use and relate more to the context. Specifically, we feel the conservatory and cupola should be removed to simplify the building form, and the central second story window should be revisited with a simple jack arch detail. Given the degree of restudy necessary, we urge the board to defer the application to allow restudy of the massing and architectural direction of the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. Kim, do we have anyone else?
We do. We have Justin Schwebler.
This is Justin Schwebler with Historic Charleston Foundation. HCF has reviewed the application for preliminary approval for the new construction of a duplex at the rear of 42 Charlotte Street. and we thank the applicant for his time with us and helping us understand the proposed project. We're impressed with the amount of research that the applicant has done to make his case for the orientation of the proposed dependency, and we are supportive of the proposed orientation of the building. We're also supportive of the applicant's mission to provide a building trades educational opportunity with the construction of this structure, and we applaud the applicant's dedication to traditional timber frame construction and masonry. The applicant has addressed our concerns about the conservatory, which was our primary comment at the last meeting. We also believe that the overall massing and architectural direction has improved since the last meeting. We noticed in the drawings that there are two styles of dormers. We believe that the swooped hip dormer are most appropriate for this building. Charleston does not have a tradition of shed dormers. Additional windows have been added to the rear elevation. This seems excessive, and we recommend reducing the number of windows on the rear of the building. We recommend preliminary approval with the condition that these swooped hip dormers are selected and the number of windows on the rear are reduced. Thank you.
Kim, is that it for anyone speaking?
That is.
I believe
We have some letters of a summary of support that John Paul has submitted along with his presentation that was included in the presentation, but instead of scrolling, I'm just going to open it up again.
All right, so these are just the same letters that we read last time.
Pretty much, if you can hear me, that's true.
Okay, I guess, Kim, what I can do is simply just read each line item and indicate whether, can you scroll up, Kim, so I can see that the columns at the top, the headings? Scroll up, support it, okay.
Sorry. Let me do full. Sorry about that. Just bear with me. It's not letting me do it for some reason.
All right. So letter one was, when it says location, I assume, okay, at 40 Charlotte Street, Pete and Vicky, they were supportive on April 8th, and they are supportive today. 44 Charlotte Street, Judy Murphy, they were supportive April 8th and are supportive today. 44 Charlotte Street, Barbara Julius, supportive April 8th, also in support today. 44D Charlotte Street, Carol Luongo, was supportive both April 8th and July 8th. 44A Charlotte Street, Gordon Smith, it was supportive April 8th. He's also supportive today, but he has moved. 38 Charlotte Street, Barbara Nay Wilson, supportive April 8th and today. 37 Charlotte Street, Susan Dunn, supported both April 8th and today. Also at 37 Charlotte Street, Linda Fantuzzo, supportive April 8th and today. 33 Charlotte Street, Ian Walker, supportive April 8th and today. 43 Charlotte Street, Barbara Savarese, supportive April 8th and waiting. I'm not certain what that means. Mr. Hughley?
I did not hear back from her.
Oh, I see. All right, 21 Charlotte Street, Michelle Say, supported both April 8th and today. 27 Charlotte Street, David and Victoria Gross, supported April 8th and today. 28 Chapel Street, Martin Gramling, supported on April 8th and waiting a response. 11 Elizabeth Street, Todd Magro, supported April 8th and support today. 36 Chapel Street, Margaret O'Brien. She was in support April 8th and no response.
Did hear back from her. she was a yes.
Okay, thank you. 51 Elizabeth Street, Johnny and Jenny Grosso, supported both on April 8th and today. 6 John Street, John Palmer, again, supported April 8th and today. 89 Alexander, Harriet Settle, again, supported April 8th and today. 32 Charlotte Street, Lisa Flagman, she supported April 8th as well as today, but she's moved. 22 Charlotte Street, Vaughn Alsbrook. We did not hear from them April 8th, but they are in support today. Kim, is just 20?
That is all.
All right. And is that all of the public comment?
It is.
All right. Well, Kim, I'll let you give city staff comments and recommendations.
Thank you, Lindsay. I think I should start by revisiting the motion and the staff comments from last time. Board members, would you like to see that?
Please.
Okay. So on April 8th, 2021, the project was deferred with staff comments and board comment that a building be detailed to its proper period rather than falsified historic details. And would you like me to read the staff comments?
Falsified historic.
Unless other board members have to have a comment, I think if you just left them up so we could review.
Then are the board comments below that, Kim?
No.
Historic detail.
Kim, I may have them, but do you have the approved minutes from that April 8th meeting? Because I think those would have the board comment.
We don't do minutes anymore while we are virtual.
And what was the exact motion, Kim?
Deferral with staff comments and board comment that a building be detailed to its proper period rather than falsified historic details. Just let me know when you'd like me to read our staff comments.
I was going to ask fellow board members if you all had finished reviewing.
Good. I'm good to move forward if everyone else is.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, moving forward, we appreciate the changes and improvements that have been made, and some of the directives from the board meeting were addressed. However, we feel that the proposal requires further study. A portion of the deferral was for its massing, and the building is now 6 inches taller and includes a large intersecting gable, effectively increasing the massing. Massing could be reduced by a simple refinement in interior layout and programmatic study. The current design has elements that are very formal, such as the window element above the entry and the conservatory, which should be redesigned for simplicity. Reduce the windows in size and in light pattern. Eliminate or reduce the cupola by 50%. The conservatory form should be simplified and attached via hyphen. Simplify the dormers and remove the extraneous surrounding brick. Remove awnings except for over a door. So for these reasons, the staff's recommending deferral for massing and general architectural design. Thank you.
Mr. Hughley, did you want to clarify anything or respond to public comment or staff comments?
Sure, thank you. I'm reading those now. I think I got most of them. We will relook at windows. We agree with the comments of the board and the staff about the window above the front entrance. We talked to staff about how to reduce the windows a little bit. So we're already looking at how to reduce them slightly. The cupola is, remember, not for just looks. It's actually there to function, not just light in, but to get the heat out. So we'll look at that too if we can bring it down. The reason the height changed going up, it only changed 6 inches. We actually brought the building down, but we and brought the building in 3 feet, remember, so that brought the building down. But as we changed with the drainage, the building was brought up a little bit just so that it would be at the back of that lot. If you didn't see, kind of slopes down, and the neighbor, I don't think it's had any problem with water coming from our part onto his, but we want to make sure that everything is sloping towards Charlotte Street, not towards Chapel Street. So that's basically it. We would love to understand the comment from the board last time about falsifying history. If anybody can kind of clarify that. I know my faculty have been texting me going, please have them explain that in detail if they can. When it
Sure, I can explain, or if they want to go back and watch the video, but I'll just say real quick, it was the Patras plates, a lot of the, falsified elements that were on the building.
Say it again.
They can go back and watch the video. Yeah, it's on there.
And then Kim, on number 9, when you say awning, do you remember, you're talking about the actual shed roof there on your list? I just got a quick view of it, said something about an awning.
These to me are awnings.
So what did you say? You said simplify them?
They should be either eliminated or just over a door.
Okay. They were part of our solar plan. We're trying to make this more sustainable. And in using, early on, remember I mentioned I didn't want a solar panel on this, but we are using the sustainable concepts of how we can introduce a new building downtown, but also introduce solar. And we have solar film, which we're still trying to get a sample of, that attaches to a roof, and it's literally the thinness of a piece of paper, in something you wouldn't see, and it doesn't blow off during a hurricane. It's not used in South Carolina yet, but we're trying to use that as part of our school to at least nod and be understandable about what a building takes to breathe and reduce heat and also sustain itself. So those are part of our solar plan. So I know it's pointed out on the drawings, but be aware, if we take that away, we lose our solar. So
I hate to interrupt, John Paul, but I would, for the record, just like to add that the city is very, very interested in exploring solar collectors and options on how to put those to use. So I certainly think that we can all work together to make that happen.
Oh, great. Well, I'm learning about it right now.
And I'll add that the film has been used locally, and so there are vendors and case studies, and there is a lot of planning that has to go into ridge caps and the way you hide the connectors, the wires, and all of that. But the solar film has been used.
Awesome, great.
Right.
That's why we're on the lower shed, so we can hide those wires. So I'm talking to a company out of Canada, but they don't have anybody down here. So I'll reach out to you, Glenn, and find out who's been doing it.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hughley.
Thank you.
I will now open it up for board discussion and a vote.
All right, I can start. Yeah, I think overall, I think the changes that the applicant and his team have made have helped the design. You know, it doesn't seem so barn-like anymore. And I acknowledge this is clearly an unusual, unique structure and endeavor. And, you know, I do want to give this group the opportunity to use the skills that they're promoting and do some interesting things. I don't feel like this is anywhere close to a preliminary application. It's just, even for conceptual, it's pretty loose in terms of the plan, and there's really no indication of details at this point. And that does kind of concern me going forward, because I think the details are critical for something as unusual as this. And I'm hoping that, you know, some experienced architects or somebody can kind of step in and really refine and clarify that level of detail. And then I was going to mention that the brick dormers are very unusual in general, especially the side wall, and that would be a structural challenge, like Bill mentioned. And if that ends up being the final design solution, I might recommend, you know, a roof material and a brick palette that would sort of blend with each other, so you don't end up with a weird patchwork at that level. Yeah, that's really all I've got. I mean, if we can just look at the east elevation for 1 second, just one little example of something that seems like loose and concerns me a little bit. There's the east. Like the triple windows, I can imagine that on your precedent picture, that on the outside of that, there's little fragments of brick between the windows, you know? I mean, just things like that I think really need to be looked at more carefully and resolved. But yeah, I think it's improved, and I do respect the impetus for doing something unusual like this. I'm a fan of the school and its endeavors.
Glenn, and I think that I agree with a lot of the staff and the Preservation Society comments. I also acknowledge that a lot of change has been made since the last review. And I think my main points would be that when you look at this east elevation that's on the screen now, the difference in the massing, to me, looking east and west, it has really grown by adding that cross gable. So to me, that massing may be a bit of an issue with regard to the size of this building. And I think that is really exacerbated by the cupola and by the conservatory. But I do think when you're looking from the north and south elevations, that the dormers kind of breaking up the roof are helpful. And I think I appreciate those study photos of the swooping dormer, but I am not seeing the cupola being a path forward to final approval for me. It's making this building something really, really large. And I think that gable, the cross gable in the middle, really needs to be rethought and toned down in order to keep the massing of this building in a kind of a reasonable manner. But I think that, as Julia pointed out, the detailing is going to be incredibly critical. I think it's very interesting to try to have these metal windows built, if they can be built locally and built successfully and hurricane proofed. I think that's a really great thing to be working on and considering. I'm hesitant, I guess is the best word. But before we know how much of this can be reality with the structural engineers and the hurricane ratings and things like that. I think there are some details of this building as we're seeing it today that are riding a lot on detailing that has to be figured out and elaborated on to make sure that this is a permittable building to be built. But otherwise, I think the massing is my main comment for the evening with regard to the cupola, the conservatory, and the cross gable.
Fillmore Wilson here. I will start by saying that I agree with the comments of my fellow board members, and they have certainly made very good comments about a lot of specific details. So I'm going to stay away from that and try to be a little more general. I want to first of all say that, of course, I think like everyone on the board and at the city, I'm a supporter of the College of the Building Arts and what you are doing there. In fact, two of my coworkers in architectural conservation teach there, and I do a couple of their labs every year. So I'm very familiar with the college and very supportive of the work they do. And I also want to emphasize that I appreciate the desire to create a building here that demonstrates the artisanship that the college is practicing. And so that said, I certainly have some comments in general about the building. I think that the massing can be improved. And I am particularly concerned about the building sort of pretending to be something that it is not. It is reading as a utilitarian or industrial or commercial structure. It is, however, residential. That's not to say that there are not a lot of utilitarian historic buildings in Charleston that are now residential, but that is an adaptive reuse of a historic structure, not a new building reading as something that it is not. And so that certainly concerns me. And I think the building is very high style for its location, and it's quite high style to be an ancillary building to the historic structure at the front of the lot. And so those are my primary concerns. I would also say that I have been humbled by trying to put a basement on a new construction in the city of Charleston. And I can also say that I built a new house in a very high X zone about 4 years ago. And about 4 or 5 months after the great rains of 2015, we hit groundwater at 44 inches on a very high X zone lot. So I'm only saying, I'm not saying you can't do it, but just because it's X zone doesn't mean that you won't hit the water table at some point. So I think that's all I have to add.
This is Bill. I don't really have a lot to add. I think a lot of very good comments have been made by my fellow board members. And I'm in really agreement with the majority of those comments and several of the comments from the board as well. I think my main emphasis of, call it concern if you'd like, would be the massing. And I think some of the comments the board members have made really directly address my exact concern. So that's all I have.
So, I mean, do you guys feel like staff has pretty much addressed most of our concerns in their comment?
I think Julia, that for the most part, I agree. I mean, we all have our little comments we've made. but I think largely staff is on there.
Okay.
Yeah, I am comfortable with staff's comments.
All right. So how about a motion for deferral for massing and general architectural direction with staff comment and a board comment to clarify code compliance.
All right.
You know,
Oh, sorry.
I think that might just do it. They know what I mean, like about the windows and the basement and all that stuff. Just clarify code compliance of the design.
Generally. Okay, we have a motion on the floor for deferral for massing and general architectural design with staff comments and a board comment to clarify code compliance generally.
Or I think verify, not clarify,
Yeah.
if there's a difference there.
There is.
To verify code compliance in general. All right, do you have a second?
This is Bill, I'll second.
All right, I'll put it to a vote. Fillmore,
Yay in favor.
Glenn,
Yay in favor.
Julia,
Yay in favor.
Bill,
Yay in favor.
chair votes with the majority and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Hughley.
Thank you so much.
All right, agenda item number 966 Church Street. Kim?
Thank you, Lindsay. Bear with me for just a moment. Okay, 66 Church Street is requesting final approval for piazza enclosure at rear. The building's a category 3 in the Charlestown neighborhood, was built in 1784, and it's in the Old and Historic District. And here's an aerial image just to show you where it is on the east side of the street. There's some existing photographs of the house. And the enclosure that is in question would be right here in this bay. And some images on Church Street. And this is the north side of the house. And from here, if Mr. Liberatos wants to take it away, you have the floor.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Christopher Liberatos. I'm an architect representing the Porters who own 66 Church Street and wish to install some new French doors at the rear of their second floor porch. This application is complete. The drawings are thorough. The proposal is in compliance with the ordinance, and there's no reason this application should not be granted a certificate of appropriateness. You might remember this application from 11 weeks ago, but since the first question I was asked at that presentation was, where are the elevations? First, I'd like to walk you through the drawings vignette by vignette, starting with drawing 1. City staff, can we have drawing 1 on the screen, please? On the right-hand side of drawing 1 is the site plan showing the location of the proposed changes. To its left is the west elevation. There are no proposed changes to the west elevation. City staff, can we have drawing 2 on the screen, please? Along the bottom of drawing 2 is the south elevation. There are no proposed changes to the south elevation. City staff, can we have drawing 3 on the screen, please? At the left on drawing 3 is the east elevation as it exists. To the right is the east elevation as proposed. City staff, can we have drawing 2 on the screen again, please? Along the top of drawing 2 is the second floor plan. We are not proposing any changes to any of the other floors. You'll note there are no dimensions on the existing portion of this floor plan. That is because customarily architectural drawings never show dimensions on existing conditions. This is a convention for architectural drawings that goes back centuries. Architects only show dimensions on new work, and I have provided dimensions for all new work being proposed here. You'll note that at the rear of the piazza, proposed new doors are shown hatched per architectural drawing custom, with a note that points to their location and to the detail plan, which is located on drawing 1. City staff, can we have drawing 1 on the screen again, please? The top left of drawing 1 shows a detailed floor plan. This is drawn at 3/4 of an inch to the foot, which is 3 times the scale required by the BAR. It shows the location and construction of the jambs and directs you to the detailed elevations of the doors below. The new doors are dimensioned and always have been, and these drawings are complete. At the last presentation, I explained the reasons our clients wish to install these new doors. They are, number 1, that the existing kitchen is too small for dining and could not be enlarged without destroying the beautifully designed and well-built cantilevered bay of 2006. 2, that the room behind the kitchen is up a flight of steps and impractical for older people. 3, that this bay has been closed longer than it has been opened, and that this design would have been given approval if part of the original 2006 proposal. 4, that the details and proportions of the doors would match those of the existing ones. 5, that the new doors would be minimally visible from the public right-of-way. And finally, 6, that the proposed alteration is extremely minor and easily reversible. On page 1 of our supplemental documents, I have provided comments about the design from the previous presentation. The comments were positive. Board member Mr. Gardner praised the design. Board member Mr. Wilson praised the design. And chairperson of the board, Ms. Van Slambrook, praised the design. The Historic Charleston Foundation praised the design, describing it as an exceptionally thoughtful application. On page 2 of our supplemental documents, you'll find additional support for this proposal from the neighbors to the immediate south at 64 Church Street. They are the only people other than the owners and their guests who will ever see these new doors from any closer than 80 feet, and they are in full support of this application. Moving on to the board's motion. There were 3 items in the board's motion. The first item was the requirement that we undergo and submit a sightline study. City staff, could you please show supplemental drawing A on the screen? I've called this a visibility study.
You put them out of order, so I'm not sure which one you're referring to, Mr. Liberatos.
It's the visibility study that you asked for with the red line showing what is and what is not visible from the public right-of-way. It should be the 4th drawing in the presentation. That's it. Nope. You had it.
This one?
No, it's a drawing. It's called a visibility study at the top. That's it. Thank you. I've been working in the historic district for over 20 years, and not only have I never been required to produce a sightline study, I've never even heard of one. City staff would provide only a vague description that it should be some sort of diagram, but they wouldn't explain how to make it or what it is intended to show. City staff also refused to provide a sample diagram. I emailed the only 2 architects I know of who might know what a sightline study is. That would be board members Ms. Martin and Mr. Huey, who voted for this motion, but I never heard back. So despite a lack of clarification or assistance, the city denied this application from being heard again until this item was addressed. So I decided to base this drawing on sightline diagrams of theater furniture layout. It's just a guess as to what you think you need to determine this application's compliance with the ordinance, but I've tried to be as comprehensive as possible so as to not waste any more time on this minor project. The drawing shows that the new doors would not be visible from a clear majority of the public right-of-way. It also shows that at their most visible, anyone who might see the new doors would be over 87 feet away, and that they would only see the top 1.5 feet of the new doors. No one closer than 79 feet away would even be able to see these new doors. The profile of the house at 64 Church Street is shown dashed, showing that it would block the view of the new doors from the south. So as this drawing shows, only a very small fraction of the new doors will be seen, and only from very far away. I said in the last presentation that these doors would be minimally visible, which was clear in the photographs or to anyone who visited the site. Since this board forbids applicants from speaking after our initial presentation unless spoken to, if this drawing does not satisfy this item, I ask that the board please be more specific in what it is you think you need to see. Moving on to item 2 of the board's motion, which was for detailed drawings. We believe that the attached drawings are more than sufficient for determining that this proposal is in compliance with the ordinance. The detailed floor plan, as I said, is 3 times the scale required. The doors are detailed at the standard scale of 3/4 of an inch to the foot. They are dimensioned and notated. There are no further details over which this board has purview. I ask the board to reconsider this item. Finally, the third item of the board's motion was, quote, the board condition for the east wall be disengaged from balustrade. Well, there are no walls being proposed in this application. We're only proposing new doors. As is shown on the detailed floor plan, the new doors to the east are intended to be installed behind the railing. They won't be engaged with the railing, they'll be behind it. So I can only guess what this item is supposed to mean. If it's about board member Ms. Martin's suggestion that the board should require that the corner pilaster be moved out of alignment with its matching column, I would say that the corner pilaster is designed to be precisely where it is, which is in alignment with its matching column. Perhaps that suggested requirement was made off the cuff, but moving a pilaster out of alignment with its colonnade in order to save 10 inches of a railing installed in 2006 would look stupid. It would look as if the builder had made an error or that the architect didn't know what he was doing. Furthermore, I'm sorry, the preceding applicant had way more than 10 minutes, so I would ask for a special
No, he
dispensation.
didn't. Yeah, well, there were questions, but he did not present for more than 10 minutes.
Mr. Liberato said, I'm not using your time right now, but you have about a minute left. For the initial presentation, I stick to 10 minutes.
I'm not anywhere near 10 minutes yet.
You started at 6:35, Mr. Liberato. It is 6:44.
Furthermore, that an architect on the board might have designed a detail differently if she had been hired to do so is not among the reasons listed in the ordinance justifying denying a proposal a certificate of appropriateness. Either way, the east railing is way out of view of the public right-of-way and is therefore outside the purview of the BAR. I ask that the board reconsider this item. On supplemental document page 6 are the criteria specified in the policy statement for piazza enclosures. Our proposal meets the criteria listed in the policy statement. At the last presentation, city staff said, quote, the piazza enclosure proposal meets the approval criteria set forth in the policy statement for piazza enclosures. The necessity for the additional area which results from the enclosure is sufficiently compelling that any alternative solution results in unacceptable alterations. The location of the piazza is in the rear and minimal in size and does not alter the conceptual relationship between the house, piazza, or hyphen. This is correct and true about the design as submitted. This application complies with the policy statement for piazza enclosures. Supplemental document page 7 shows the portion of the ordinance that describes what additions should look like. It calls explicitly for, quote, continued construction in the historic styles and a general harmony as to style, form, color, proportion, texture, and material. It calls for a, quote, harmonious outward appearance of structures. This application meets these requirements in every respect. The new doors will have proportions, details, colors, and materials that will harmonize with the existing ones. They'll be stylistically appropriate and will harmonize with the outward appearance of the structure. The excerpt below that is the portion of the ordinance that gives the reasons for denying an application. They are, quote, arresting and spectacular effects, violent contrasts of materials or colors, a multiplicity or incongruity of details resulting in a restless and disturbing appearance, the absence of unity, visual compatibility, and coherence in composition, form, and proportion not in consonance with the dignity and character of the present structure or with the prevailing character of the immediate surroundings. None of these conditions apply to this application. This proposal is fully compliant with the ordinance. We've shown this application to our attorneys and they agree that it is fully compliant with the ordinance. I have something I'd like to say about precedents, but if I'm going to be interrupted again, I'd rather just end it there.
Mr. Liberato, I'll allow you one more minute if you can fit it in there.
Thank you very much. Finally, at the last presentation, one of the board members said, quote, we need to be very careful about setting precedent if we're looking at going against our board policy for piazza enclosures. As just shown, granting a certificate of approval for this application would not be going against your board policy. However, I'd like to briefly address the topic of precedents. This board is not a precedent-based body. That notion should have been corrected by city staff or the chairperson at the last presentation. Fear of setting a precedent is not listed as a valid reason to deny an application. However, if you decide that in this case, the board is a precedent-based body, then we submit on supplemental documents, page 8, this precedent, a project the board recently approved to enclose 3 piazza bays. This is 69 Meeting Street, directly across from South Carolina Society Hall. These 3 enclosed piazza bays are much more visible than our single bay and designed with proportions and details that are not harmonious with the existing ones. If you would allow this alteration, then you should allow our clients as well. In conclusion, I'm not asking for help from the architects on the board in designing this proposal. This is not an architectural design committee. This is an architectural review committee. I'm asking that you review this application for its conformance with the ordinance and that you grant this proposal a certificate of appropriateness so that this project can go forward. That's the end of the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Liberato.
Thank
I'll
you.
open up now. Do my fellow board members have questions for Mr. Liberato?
So again, nothing has changed at all, correct?
Yes, I've submitted another drawing, which I've called a visibility study.
The design has not changed at all, right?
Nope, the design is fully compliant with the ordinance and the policy statement as it is.
That's no question.
All right, if there are no other board, Julia, did you have anything else? All right, there's no other board questions. Let's go to public comment. Kim, do we have anyone speaking?
We do. We have Erin Minigan. Erin, you have the floor.
Thank you. Erin Minigan with the Preservation Society of Charleston. Based on the information provided, the Preservation Society believes piazza enclosure will be visible from Church Street and is therefore not supportive of the request in accordance with the BAR policy statement on piazza enclosures that emphasizes the importance of preserving this important and characteristic feature of Charleston's vernacular architecture. However, if the board feels they should approve the request, we would encourage the infill to be set back further from the southern edge to minimize its visibility. Thank you.
And we also have Justin Schwebler.
This is Justin Schwebler with Historic Charleston Foundation. HCF has reviewed the application for a piazza enclosure at the rear of 66 Church Street. As stated in the BAR policy statement on piazza enclosures, Charleston piazzas are a building feature unique to and closely identified with the architectural history and urban character of the city that should be preserved and retain the prevailing character of the city. To enclose piazzas and incorporate them into the interior of the building eliminates this unique feature. While we think the applicant has made an exceptionally thoughtful application for the piazza enclosure, and the owner has been an excellent steward of this important historic house, we do not support the visible piazza enclosure at the rear of 66 Church Street. We respectfully recommend the denial of this application. Thank you.
That's all for public comment.
We don't have any written comment either, Kim.
Let me just double check. No, we don't.
All right, then I'll turn it over to you for city staff comments and recommendations.
Thank you, Lindsay. Just to clarify, the previous motion was for deferral pending a sightline study, detailed drawings, and board condition for the east wall to be disengaged from the balustrade. The staff comments incorrectly recalled by Mr. Liberato are as follows. The visual impact of the oblique angle will read as very solid and should incorporate more glass to help further differentiate the enclosure. Use the door type B or similar to enlarge the light pattern of the door slab to incorporate more glass and eliminate excess mullion. The second comment was shift screening and new column to extend one bay instead of two at door type B. And the third comment was provide details on how the rear elevation will incorporate into the balustrade. Provided these conditions are met, the staff's recommendation was for conceptual approval with staff comments and final review by staff. Moving forward to today's meeting, the staff were comfortable with this proposal on the condition that the enclosure be recessed further by about 2 feet. The applicant did not alter the design to incorporate that condition, and so the BAR staff cannot support this proposal. The staff's recommending denial is submitted. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Mr. Liberatos, you have 5 minutes if you would like to respond to any of the public comment or the staff comments and recommendations from the city.
Thank you. In response to the Historic Charleston Foundation, I would like to thank them for their praise of this design, and I will assure them that the design of these doors would not affect the character of this house or its piazzas. And the Preservation Society is incorrect that the policy statement requires that this enclosure be invisible from the public right-of-way. The policy statement does not say anything like that. It says that the enclosure shall be minimally visible, which it will. In response to city staff, staff's recommended requirement at the last presentation that you require our clients to use larger panes of glass so as to differentiate the new doors from the existing ones purely for the sake of differentiation runs totally counter to the ordinance, which calls for additions to harmonize with existing buildings, not to purposefully differ from them. Thankfully, she's dropped that recommendation this go around, but about her recommendation that you should require our clients to reduce the size of this already small proposed room. At the previous presentation, the city staffer indicated that she believes that the room should be reduced by a half. Now she's recommended that you should require our clients to decrease it by an arbitrary amount of about 2 feet. She's not indicated why such a requirement should be imposed. It would reduce the size of this room to less than 7 feet, which would defeat the purpose of this application. It would ruin the carefully designed proportions of the doors to the east, and it would displace the corner pilaster that has been designed to be of a pair with the existing column. This recommendation seems to reflect the arbitrary whim of a city staffer. Neither the ordinance nor the piazza enclosure policy statement require that these new doors be hidden from the public right-of-way. There's no legal basis for requiring this of our clients.
Thank you, Mr. Liberatos. I am going to open it up now for board discussion and a vote. Yeah, I'll start. Well, I always appreciate being quoted. And I do recall saying that it was minimal in size, the design. I questioned last time whether this enclosure, there was some compelling reason for it, and it was necessary. There was no other alternative for it. And I think that was left off, and I don't think that we got a good answer to that this time as well, but there's not another alternative versus enclosing this piazza.
Lindsay, you're spot on. I think the applicant actually provided that language, and I think that's really key to our decision now. Can you find that little excerpt again? While you're doing that, I'll just have to mention how unpleasant that whole experience was just now. And,
For me too.
I'm pretty sure you managed to lash out at and/or insult each and every one of us and some of the public as well. And I just do not understand your approach to this at all. I mean, the condescension and the combativeness is just not necessary and not productive for any of us, including you.
I had to raise
but notwithstanding any of that, I'm really being objective and going back, like I mentioned last time, to that piece of the of our policy statement. Kim, did you find that? It's a different sheet where it quotes the policy statement, where it says that the need for this enclosure needs to be compelling, sufficiently compelling that any alternative solution results in unacceptable alterations to the historic fabric. And it's a breakfast room, and so I'm just personally not comfortable with that qualifying as a compelling need for someone to have a comfortable life. So that's where I'm hanging my hat on this. Notwithstanding, the unpleasantness of the way it was presented and dealt with, that's relevant.
This is Bill. I guess I'll chime in just so you, I guess the main portion I was mentioned about in that presentation was contacting for questions and clarification. Appreciate you reaching out, but the board has a policy that we're not allowed to communicate with applicants regarding specific BAR submittal items. And so that's why I was not able to return any message that you left. I just want to clarify that. That's a board policy. And I have a lot of people ask me questions all the time. I have to tell them the same thing. And I think the other thing that's kind of sort of an important point here regarding the policy statement and the way things are written here, there's another part of that does dictate the statement minimally visible. Okay, so minimally visible, there needs to be an arbiter of that point. That's what this board basically is one of our charges to do. I believe the suggestion previously is, if I recall, the deliberation in the previous meeting about potentially a 2-foot reduction. I believe that's not necessarily an arbitrary point. I believe staff's comment was more in response to some of the deliberations of the board at that time. So that's where that number came from. So yeah, I was sort of hoping that we would come back and see a 2-foot reduction in that glass wall and location, and I would have been prepared to approve it, because I believe it would have addressed my concerns from the previous meeting. So I'm sorry to see that we're at a point of impasse, but anyway, that's all I have.
Unbelievable.
May I ask that we go to the sightline study? Thank you. I would just like to clarify that in looking from the street, which I have done, there is more visible than what this shows. You can see through the rails, and it just depends on what angle you're looking through. I'm not at all debating the fact that it is not in full visibility. I'm just pointing out that it is more visible than this shows. But as a general comment, I have in the past been an advocate of doing a mock-up. I don't know if that option was ever given or mentioned to the applicant, but we've had other applicants come to us and mock up plywood or pink insulation foam board on a rooftop or in areas where they wanted to do something because it's very inexpensive and very easy to do. So that they can either then provide a photograph of that mock-up as part of their submittal, or the board can have a site visit, or the board can go by at their own timing to have a look and to have a better understanding of additions and infills. And so that is an option or an idea here that I think would have been extremely helpful if it had either been mentioned to the applicant or if the applicant had taken it upon himself to do that, because I think that it really does help clarify and prove visibility. And even to that point, to make a mock-up out of foam board as submitted, and then perhaps make another mock-up with the staff recommended 2-foot recess and have a photograph of both would be extremely helpful, I think, in judging this. So I'm putting that on the table across the board as something that should be considered by applicants in the future.
Like Glenn, I went and looked at this pretty carefully day before yesterday, walked up and down the street and checked the visibility. I'll be honest with you, I can't see the sightline study on my monitor. I mean, I can see it, but I can't make heads or tails out of it because it's just too small. So I can't make a judgment about its accuracy or not. But the location of the enclosure is visible from the sidewalk on both sides of the street, depending on where you're standing. So I think the fact that it's visible is not in question. And just to make a point, I have, as most board members have, generally been opposed to porch enclosures on historic structures because our ordinance encourages that. So I am not, without being persuaded, but I don't think I have been persuaded because I don't think there's been any additional evidence presented here to warrant that.
And Fillmore, to that point, I think a lot of times when we do consider piazza enclosures or partial piazza enclosures, they are at times when there are other aspects that are being corrected on a building, or accommodations being made and saying that there's not a way to fit a modern bathroom into a building without enclosing one bay of a piazza, but on the other hand, we're going to open up 3 bays that were already enclosed. So I'm not saying it's a trade-off, but a lot of times we do consider the full scope of work when we are talking about a piazza enclosure. And in this case, the scope of work is the piazza enclosure. There is not an additional scope of work to be thinking about. So that is the only thing we're looking at today. And I think the architect has given us as a board the maximum level of drawing detail that he is able to give to make the consideration.
Yes, I agreed.
Drawing detail, not physical detail. I'll point that out.
Right.
Because
and as I said, I'm still, I have certainly not opposed every single small porch enclosure that has come before this board. So I am always open to being convinced. But like I said, from the original application to this one, I don't think there has been any evidence provided to make me change my mind from where I voted previously.
Is there a motion? Where?
So are we ready for a motion?
Sure.
Okay, I'll make a motion. Do you think that there's additional evidence that can make us change our minds? So defer instead of. Like suggested, perhaps a mock-up, perhaps a minor change in the.
My issue is the lack of the compelling justification to infill a piazza for our policy statement. So wouldn't affect me, but that's just me.
Okay, then the motion will be denial as submitted.
I have a motion on the floor for denial as submitted. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Oh, yeah, cool. Okay, that's fine. Julia seconded it. I'm sorry.
Put it to a vote. Bill,
Yeah, in favor.
Glenn,
Nay opposed.
Fillmore,
Yay in favor.
Julia.
Yay in favor.
Chair votes with the majority, and the motion passes with 4 votes for and 1 against. Thank you, Mr. Liberato. All right, moving to agenda item number 10, 45 South.
Thank you, Lindsay. 45 South Street is requesting conceptual approval for the new construction of a single-family residence. It's in the east side and in the old city district. Here's an aerial image showing this on the south side. And here's the existing site. Some Sanborn maps. There's the building that used to be there. And Mr. Kenny Kraft's our applicant. Mr. Kraft, if you'd like to take it from here, you have the floor.
Mr. Kraft, you're on mute.
There we go. Unmute.
We can hear you now.
Okay. All right. Maybe. All right. How's everybody doing? I had a chance to come before the board 2 meetings ago and present project on east side, 45 South Street. I guess you can go to the next slide. Right, we have a very small lot, just barely under the threshold of allowing for a single family residence. It has a 3-foot setback on the left side, which is the east side. It has a 7-foot setback on the west side. And the client came to me wanting to design something that fit in with the neighborhood. We have, I guess in our last meeting, we talked about the flood zone. The flood zone was reduced. It's an AE flood zone, but it was reduced from what it used to be. The original concept was partially conceived to be raised up to get a little higher up for the flood zone. We did determine that it didn't need to be quite as high raised up based on the flood zone. On the other hand, the design was also conceived to kind of be very, kind of small square footage, small massing, and more along the lines of a 2.5 story. You can go to the next slide. Okay, well, some of the context. Contextually, a lot of the houses are just 2-story with a pitched roof. Of course, originally they were either pretty low to the ground with 1 or 2 step entry into the piazza, or maybe raised 3 or 4 feet with a piazza entry, and generally having sort of that 2-story with the roof pitch massing. You can go to the next slide. Previously, we had a bit of an unusual situation where you entered kind of halfway into the lot from the middle. And one of the recommendations from the board last time was to, one, just recognizing that entry from the middle block was a little unusual. And so we've gone back in with an entry situation with a more of a front level entrance. What I might do is skip ahead to the front elevation, and then we could go back to the plans. Again, with the context in mind of sort of the slightly raised 2-story typical context on this street, and then the zoning allowance for 2.5 story, we've been working with sort of a 2.5 story look, really trying to keep the massing down, keeping the footprint, very skinny. I think it's 16 feet wide, and going with sort of the half story with the dormers. Previously, we had a fully raised foundation with like an arch in the front, arch stucco, and we had the doorway entrance halfway down the side. So from the direction of the board last time, we've kind of gone in a different direction to really address the front entry, to make it go along more with the neighbors, so that you come to the front door with sort of a similar entry style with the transom and the hood. And one of the big things we're trying to achieve here is, the lot is so skinny, there really is not enough space on the lot to have a parking drive lane and also still have a piazza and still have the footprint of the house. So by getting up a little bit higher, we can have this piazza balcony that is on the west side that really kind of follows the pattern of the street where all the piazzas are on the west side, as well as keeping the sort of skinny footprint and the half-story look. Maybe you can go to the next slide. The side elevation. We're showing the, originally there was a concept, stylistic, compositional idea going on here with sort of a raised lower level that could be used for storage or could be used potentially as like a indoor outdoor courtyard space, outdoor patio that's covered, potentially used for parking or maybe golf cart, but otherwise kind of allows for the piazza balconies above. And then the massing is set up in such a way, the front massing has two bedrooms upstairs, and then there's a master suite addition, kind of a massing on the back that's kind of broken down in scale that can allow for a vaulted ceiling condition for a master suite. You can pan. Maybe we'll go back to the plans right now. The ground level plan shows now, instead of entering from the middle as we had it previously, we now enter. There we go. We have an entry foyer at the entrance. That way, neighbors come to visit. Everybody knows where the front door is. You go up the stairs. You come to the second level. Go to the second level. The floor plan remains similar to what it was before, with the kind of main level massing and then the master suite massing in the rear. And now the staircase essentially sort of wraps all the way up the building to the top half story. If you go back to the lower level again, the way in which I've set it up here, potentially, there's plenty of space for parking. The client was interested in having some off-street parking because the street is very tight and pretty filled up with parking spaces. So the idea of having the potential of maybe navigating one car and still being able to get another car in and out was one of the concepts here. We have kind of reduced the original ambitious idea, which was way too open and more carport-like. In this concept at the front massing, I'm almost envisioning it feels more, it's hardscaped, it's pavers. It almost feels more like an outdoor living space, a patio, courtyard area connected with the outside. Further toward the back, potentially you could park under or golf cart or storage, but it's less oriented toward that and more just sort of using that space for storage. I guess we could pan through the rest of the drawings just to kind of have more of an overview. The side view, the rear view, and we're only on the other opposite side. We're only about 3 feet away, so the rear is pretty simple. And maybe we could go back to the front elevation, and you might recall the previous version of the idea here was to go with the 2.5 story look and keep with some of the original concepts that were originally planned. I'll let you guys take it from here.
Thank you, Mr. Kraft. Do any of my fellow board members have questions for Mr. Kraft? All right. We'll move on to public comment. Kim, do we have anyone speaking from the public?
We do. We have Aaron Minigan.
Thank you. Erin Minigan with the Preservation Society of Charleston. We feel the design has improved from the previous meeting. In particular, the incorporation of an entry on the facade is very positive. However, we continue to have significant concern over the large unscreened opening toward the front of the foundation on the west elevation. While no comparison drawings were provided, which are necessary under the submittal requirements, the foundation level plan looks very similar to last time, and we feel this area under the foundation will be utilized for parking. The board specifically directed the applicant to restudy parking to move it away from under the structure, and we feel this condition still needs to be addressed. The large visible opening at this part of the foundation is inappropriate at the front of the house, and better screening and treatment needs to be studied. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin.
And I also have a Tony Johnson signed up. I believe that's the owner. One moment. You have the floor when you're ready to speak.
Maybe you're on mute, Tony.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
No, I am sorry, I don't know why I'm getting let me see.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. All right, and you don't hear echo?
Right now?
Okay, all right. Hi, thank you very much for allowing me a few minutes. I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to come back in front of the board. My husband and I were very excited about the opportunity to become part of the community in Charleston, and the modifications that Kenny made, we thought would meet the board's requirements, and we are open to any additional modifications. Our goal is just to move forward as quickly as possible so we can make this our permanent home, hopefully, within the next, start building within the next 6 months. So thank you. And, let's hear whatever other concerns anyone has, and we'll take it back and work through it.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
We have no other public comment, Lindsay.
All right, no letters either.
No, ma'am.
All right. Well, Kim, if you give us city staff comments and recommendations, please.
Sure, thank you. We just have a couple comments. Eliminate the first section of screening on the south elevation in favor of a solid foundation. Eliminate the ridge cap on the roof. Incorporate brackets on both piazzas. Incorporate shutters on all windows for consistency. Further recess the hyphen, increase by a foot on both sides to clearly delineate the volumes. The ground floor openings are plainly visible from the street and should be concealed. It would be best if the front volume had a smaller opening, as carports in the historic district are contextually inappropriate. The staff's recommending conceptual approval with staff comments noted. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Mr. Kraft, did you want to respond to any of the staff comments or the public comment?
I may take a moment to respond. Yeah, I appreciate the comments and the feedback, and I know we discussed at great length last time the sort of the debate about having a raised space being allowed to be used for parking and being kind of not a historically precedented thing or character thing. I know there was a lot of discussion last time about what that looks like and feels like, and perhaps that having a bearing on the character of that space. I think, long story short, we're definitely flexible to make modifications if everybody feels very strongly about it. As I was reworking the design, the thought to me was that front area, I feel like because it's such a small lot and because you're primarily taking up your whole lot with a driveway down the side, it actually could give you an opportunity to have kind of a usable under area, that actually has hardscaping, and maybe it's an outdoor dining area. It actually kind of feels like a usable extension of the side courtyard. And well, we haven't officially commissioned Glenn Gardner for landscape architecture. He has, along those lines of actually really thoughtfully incorporating good design in terms of the landscaping, the hardscaping, making that, especially the front area, feel like not really necessarily feel like a parking area, but actually feeling like a courtyard space. Could potentially be the best of both worlds. I mean, I think ultimately, if we feel strongly about it, we'd rather proceed and make modifications than allow this to be a block towards moving forward. Maybe if there's a way of screening it or having sort of carriage doors or sliding doors or something that kind of allowed it to act feel differently, maybe that's an option. Otherwise, I think the comments seem reasonable. I did have the hyphen in the middle on purpose to differentiate the volumes. Functionally wise, still trying to use that space. I mean, we could definitely reduce that a little bit less. And then the shutters, if I'm trying to think if I've noticed on adjacent houses down the street, if they have shutters all around the house or if they primarily have them on the frontages. But, I love that from a design perspective. I know it definitely adds cost. So, if that's important, I definitely like it from a design perspective. But yeah, I probably all the comments I need to say.
Thank you, Mr. Kraft. All right, let's move to board discussion and a vote.
I have a question of staff. Your first comment was eliminate the first section of screening on the south elevation. There are two elevations labeled south. Was that the west elevation?
Oops. That would be the west elevation. Sorry.
It was
Kim,
that was
a day and a half to get the drawings back in, right?
Right here.
I just want to make sure I understand the staff comment.
That is the east elevation. Well, looking at it, yeah, that is the east. That is the east elevation.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
And then if I might clarify back to that drawing that was just referenced with Fillmore, the shaded areas are infill, like a louvered panel or something of the sort.
Yes. I mean, it is an AE zone, so the idea of it sort of allowing water to flow through.
Thank you.
All right, I can go. I was going to say, I appreciate the applicant's, consideration of our comments and requests from before. And I'm generally pleased with this design, and I think it's a thoughtful and worthy addition to the streetscape. And I might be in alignment with staff on that big opening toward the street, that maybe if it's mitigated somehow with louvered doors or something, so that it's not just completely wide open. I think that might be helpful. And I'm not really opposed to that section of screening on the whatever elevation we just determined that was east, the first one. And I'm also not that concerned about there being shutters on all sides. I mean, I think it's pretty normal for new construction just to focus those on the front, because all the windows have to be impact rated anyway. So I'm not that concerned about the shutters going all the way around, especially because it doesn't look like they would necessarily work with this fenestration pattern on all elevations anyway. I think that's all I got.
This is Bill.
Last tiny thing, that this is not a precedent setter for other people to have extra height for parking or anything like that.
Okay. This is Bill. I would say that it has, I do acknowledge it's come a long way. I really appreciate the effort that the applicant has made. I do agree with some of staff's comments, and as I was sort of reading through that comment and then listening to the discussions, and Julia, you kind of brought up one of my initial thoughts to it too, and I think even Kenny even mentioned it in his reply back there, was potentially some sort of a shuttering or enclosure system, maybe under this large opening. But the thing I started lamenting, and the idea as the applicant was discussing this courtyard, I envisioned this sort of hardscape courtyard that sort of bled on out on the driveway, and I started to think about what a loss of landscape green space we might potentially have there if we encourage this sort of giant courtyard effect under there. I'd almost rather have the green space there. So I was thinking maybe a couple of louvered panels that could come down to about an opening width. You could just cross from the driveway sidewalk width and have green space. That would be me personally, because I think we're not in position to see a whole lot of green space and green coverage on this lot right here. We need to, I would think about any bit we could get. But other than that, I really do think it's come a long way. I really appreciate it. I'd say, Kenny, you got your 8 pounds in a 5 pound. I appreciate it, Kenny.
I don't have a whole lot to add. I remain intrigued by this house. I think it's a little atypical for the street, but creative, and I generally applaud that, because I think it would be an interesting addition to a really tight, quaint little street. And with the green space comment, I mean, the balcony or the overhanging piazza definitely, I think, precludes much tree planting on that front half of the lot anyway. I mean, it looks to me like they could easily stack 2 off-street parking spots, according to what I see on that plan. And then maybe we would hope that they get a little bit of green planting or outdoor living in the back, Bill. But I mean, that's just a 2-second. When I looked at this yesterday, when I looked at the application, I frankly didn't even think about anything green at this point, because he's still, I guess, conceptual with the architecture. And so I was more just looking at the architecture changes. But I'm supportive of where this is headed. And I do agree with Julia's comment about the shutters. I think you could always put a pair of shutters on that larger, what I'm guessing is a stairwell window on the back side, on the east side, that middle, the one at the half story. That could be intriguing, but I also think that's not an overly visible face of the building.
Yeah, this is Lindsay. I don't have much to add. I'm in agreement with the other board members. I think my biggest comment last time was feeling as though I would get lost trying to find the front door, and perhaps there should be some wayfinding. And so I appreciate the consideration and the door on the front of the house. I think this looks really nice. It's a nice design. I really don't have anything to add.
Fillmore, did you talk? Do you have anything to add?
Not really. I think because it covered it. I don't have the shutters all the way around. I think just if they're on the front, that's probably adequate. And I was looking at the floor plan, reducing that hyphen by 2 feet is going to squeeze that space. I mean, I think it would be nice to reduce it a little bit, but maybe just further reduce the hyphen on both sides to clearly delineate instead of dictating it as a foot. It's a pretty small space.
Mm-hmm.
That would be all I was thinking. The rest of Steph's comments, I think, are on target.
All right, so maybe let me try to form a motion for conceptual approval with staff comments 2, 3, and 6, And I'll just modify staff comment number 5 to say increase slightly on both sides. And I'd be okay with final review by staff. I'll throw that out there and see what happens.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for conceptual approval with staff comments 2, 3, and 6, and a modified staff comment number 5 to increase slightly on both sides to clearly delineate the volume, and final review by staff.
You should say recess instead of increase.
Yeah.
The comment says, if we do that, we're saying further increase the hyphen.
I didn't
We want to
read.
recess the hyphen on both sides to clearly delineate the volumes. I just maybe strike the increase by 1 foot.
So I did not originally read all of comment 5. So are we in agreement that it's further recess the hyphen, increase slightly on both sides? All right.
Yeah, and that's great.
And final review by staff. Do I have a second?
This is Bill, I'll second.
Thank you. I'll put it to a vote. Glenn,
Jay in favor.
Fillmore,
Yay in favor.
Julia,
Yay in favor.
Bill,
Yay in favor.
chair votes with the majority, and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Kraft and Ms. Johnson.
Good. Thank you. All right.
All right,
Good.
we're on agenda item number 11, 569 through 571 King Street.
Thanks, Lindsay. Bear with me for just a moment. Okay, 569 to 571 King Street's requesting conceptual approval for the renovation to modify commercial and residential space. The buildings are both category 4s in the Cannonboro, Elliottboro neighborhood. One was built in 1880 and the other was built in 1835, respectively, in the Old and Historic District. Here's a little image for your context. It's at the corner of King and Cannon. And some images of the existing site. You can see 569 is the building in the center behind the palm tree, and 571 is just to the right of that at the corner. And this is looking north on King. Another image. Looking south. And a couple other contextual images. The Sanborns from 1902 and 1955. Strange years to choose, but there you have them. And we have Miss Ashley Jennings. Ms. Jennings, if you want to take it from here.
Thanks, Kim. I'm going to introduce Elaine Jenkins, my client, who is representative for the family that owns these properties, just to give you a little bit of history on what they want to do with the properties. Elaine, are you there?
I am, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Elaine Jenkins. My address is 3377 River Road, Johns Island. I am the attorney for the family of the lady Sanjani B. Jenkins. I'm also managing this redevelopment project for the family. Jessica LLC is the family's limited liability corporation, which holds legal title to the property, known in the current numbering system as 569 and 571 King and number 1 Cannon Streets. The Jenkins family has been in continuous ownership of this property for more than 50 years, late parents having purchased it in January of 1971. Parents' vision for the long-term use of the property was to maximize its productivity while at the same time recognizing the need for decent and affordable housing units in the city of Charleston. So while the 4 units on the ground level were designated for commercial use, the 2 apartments on the second level were designated for affordable housing. The goal of this redevelopment project is to continue to honor our parents' legacy and vision for this property. We propose to make extensive renovations to the interior of the 3 buildings, maintaining as much of the historic fabric as possible and employing green building practices throughout. Our goal is to rebuild better. The 4 commercial units will remain on the ground level as before, and the proposed 4 apartments on the second level will all be designated for affordable housing. We are grateful to Ms. Gianna Johnson and Mr. Eddie Bynes of the city's Department of Housing and Community Development, and of course to Ms. Jennings and AJ Architects for their guidance and assistance as the family strives to honor our late parents' legacy and vision. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Jenkins. So we're working with their family to achieve an ambitious, but also an admirable building program. I have a personal attachment to this building. My office is across the street. So I've seen the businesses come and go in this neighborhood, and I love the idea that this building is going to get new life. So let's first look at the history of the property. Kim, can you move forward to our Sanborn maps? They're awfully small, but we've got the 1884, 1888, and the 1902 Sanborns. And you'll see in all of them that the original use of the buildings was always mixed with business on the ground floor and apartments above. And what you see is a transformation from 1884 to 1902, and what was a piazza between 579 and 1 Cannon became a hyphen. You can see that as Kim starts to pan through. And what we're dealing with now is pretty close to your 1902 Sanborn maps, except that we've lost that long addition to the rear of 569. So based on that configuration, we decided to address the client's program with the intention of maintaining as much of the historic fabric as possible, but adding a little square footage up above to create more apartments. And Kim, can you move to the next slide, please? So these are some images of the building as it exists now. Some of the places that we're looking for some changes to the property would be in the space between 569 and 571 at the second floor level above what is now considered 569C. It used to be 569.5, which is that 1-story building between the two. Also, as you look along Cannon Street, there's another, what we would call a hyphen, which is where that wrap porch was originally. We're looking for a change there. And then also to the west of the kitchen house, the original kitchen house at 1 Cannon Street. And then also, as you see in the rear of the 1 Cannon Street building, there's a semblance of what was originally a piazza on the 1 Cannon Street building on the south side. And then also on the rear of the 569 property, where you see a second floor addition that was differentiated by a different type of siding. We're also proposing some changes to that as well. Okay, next slide, please. And these are just some other shots of the building to show you what's happening between the two structures there. So you can see a porch element there between 569 and 571, but it's not original. It's not the width of the original piazza, but we're proposing to demolish that. Next slide, please. These are some pictures of what we would call an alleyway between the south side of 569 and the adjacent building. And it's being used now for access to the second floor apartment, and we intend to reuse that access. Next slide, please. So this is an existing and proposed site plan, and you can see that with the dashed lines, the areas that we're proposing to rework or demolish. when we say demolish, we're not necessarily talking about taking every element out, but looking at how that area is configured now and how it might be addressed in the future. One of the things that needs to be addressed is the infill between 569 and 571 is in poor shape in some of the places. It was a bridge type of assembly, and it needs to be, there's some work that needs to be done to resolve some structural issues. And also we're proposing a second floor addition there. So that's an area that will receive some demolition and some reconstruction. And then the other major area, other than the extraneous elements like the stairwells that are coming off the back now that we're going to remove, is that piazza area at 1 Cannon Street. And you can see on our proposed site plan the areas of intervention that we're proposing, and that one would be that south side, the west side of 1 Cannon Street. We're proposing a small and quiet addition that would house a stairwell for the apartments above. That right now the stairwell occurs in the hyphen element between 569 and 1 Cannon, which you see at the top left of your image. There's a stairwell that carves through that space and comes up to a shared outdoor space between the apartments. And we're proposing to remove that and shift it to the west and use that space as part of one of the commercial spaces. Next slide, please. So these are just your existing floor plans. The next 3 slides are your existing floor plans. Once again, the intent is to maintain as much of the historic fabric as we can. We're looking at refurbishing or reworking the existing storefronts in some places and replacing storefronts in other places, depending on the age of the storefront. And you can move to the next slide. On the second floor, this existing 3 apartments, we're proposing to reconfigure and to create 4 apartments there. Once again, trying to maintain as many of the existing openings as we possibly can, the existing walls as we possibly can. Next slide, please.
And Ashley, you've got about 2 minutes left.
Okay, sorry, there's a lot to cover. This is the roof plan. One of the things we're proposing to do is to add a 3rd dormer in between the 2 dormers on the south side of 571. Next slide, please. This is the existing roof plan. Next slide. So this is the proposed first floor plan. As you can see, we have a small addition on the back of 1 Cannon with a hyphen to create that stairwell. The other change is to extend the interior space between 569 and 571 back a bit to create a little bit more square footage for that middle, very small sliver retail space. Next slide, please. And this is the apartment configuration. And what you see here, the dark areas are the new walls. So once again, we're trying to maintain as many of the walls as we possibly can. But as you can see in that space in between 569 and 571, we're proposing an apartment that actually L's into the front of 569 to occupy that front space as a bedroom. Next slide, please. And once again, this is the attic plan. We're adding that dormer to get head height for the stair. The existing stair doesn't meet code. Next slide, please. And this is the roof plan with the 3rd dormer. We're also proposing to rework the roof element on the back of 569 to create a parapet wall to house all the mechanical units. Right now, it's just a shed roof. Next slide, please. So this is the existing and proposed King Street facades, and we're proposing to remove the security grills on the front of 569 to restore the windows on both buildings, to restore the storefront on 569, to replace some more recent aluminum storefront on 571, and to restore to some degree the storefront on 569C, which is that middle element. And then what you see on the lower image is our proposal for that infill, which steps back. And the idea is to create a hyphen element that reads a little different from the other two facades, and that the scale of the windows is a little bit different. And it steps back from those facades, and it screens the shed roof that happens behind it with the parapet. Next slide, please. As you can see in the existing and proposed King Street elevations, we're trying to engage a little bit more street activity on the Cannon Street side of the building. Sorry, this is Cannon Street side. So you see that those elements at the hyphen between 571 and 1 Cannon Street, there's a proposal for an additional window there to create some more storefront. And then also those openings that have been reduced on 1 Cannon Street to open those up with some more storefront. And as you can see, there's our hyphen in addition for that stairwell element that gives the apartments at Cannon Street address. We're also looking at the potential to create a mural on that side of Cannon Street so that there's, once again, more activation on that sidewalk there. Next slide, please.
And Ashley, we are over time.
Okay.
Do we have any board questions?
I have one. Ashley, it's Glenn. How far back on the King Street face, the proposed infill hyphen, how far back is that set? I couldn't quite tell. How far back is that set from the face of the building at the sidewalk?
Can you see the on the floor plan that Kim just switched to?
Yep.
One of the really crazy things about the ground floor plan as opposed to the second floor plan is on 571, the storefront comes out past the facade. And you can see that where the property line is. So we're setting the infill back, and it's significantly farther back than the face of the building below, but it's only slightly further back from the corner at 571. Does that make sense? It's about a foot.
It does, yeah. And so if I might, I'm just going to be semi-inappropriate and ask a leading question. Is there any reason, or is there anything that would not that would keep that parapet, or not that parapet, but that infill wall from being pushed a little further in to differentiate it, or is there a structural reason? I'm just
no, not at all.
I'm trying to wrap a comment into a question.
No, not at all. We could consider that, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
I had a really minor question. Where are the electric meters now? I see you're moving them to face Cannon Street.
So they're everywhere. There are 2 on King Street. There are several on the back of the face of 1 Cannon Street, and there are a couple on the face, the south face of 569. And we're trying to group them.
Cool, thank you. Oh, also, will Dells come back? That's really important.
I think Ms. Jenkins would love it if Dells would come back.
Cool.
Do we have any other board questions? All right, Kim, do we have any public comment?
We do not.
All right, move on to city staff comments and recommendations.
Thank you, Lindsay. This is a really thoughtful and important project, and the staff are really supportive of the design. We'd like to see the hyphen element on King Street further differentiated from the second floor and allow the existing buildings to remain articulated. So staff's recommending conceptual approval with final review by staff. Thanks.
All right. Ashley, did you want to respond to any of the staff comments? You have 5 minutes.
No, I think we are certainly interested in accommodating the staff comments.
All right, I'll open it up for board discussion and a vote.
Thanks for not talking for 5 minutes about that. I think staff's idea is really interesting to differentiate that infill, because I think that could be fun and appropriate. And yeah, I agree that it's a great project. It looks like a great concept. I have really no issue with any of it.
Yeah, it's Glenn. I am incredibly supportive of this. I think those buildings need some life, and it's an important corner, and good for them for holding on to them for as long as they have. So I am supportive of the application with a bit of a little more differentiation of that hyphen to perhaps push it inboard a little bit, and then with the very clear statement that any mural would be completely separate review and is not implied as pre-approved. And I will note that the city has a pretty bad problem at the moment with graffiti and is not keeping up with graffiti removal. I think we have to be really careful as a board to clarify and differentiate the difference between graffiti and artwork in a mural, and not to step on any muralist toes, but I think it has become, a bit of an issue, and I don't know that murals help or hurt the graffiti problem, but I just want to carefully consider that if that were ever to come back to the board. Otherwise, I applaud the application.
Yeah, this is Bill. I agree with the comments made. It is a multifaceted project, you can tell, and also there are a lot of, looks like, things that needed to be cleaned up that are being cleaned up. So just in general, that's very positive for the property. So I sure appreciate that. Fillmore, yeah, guys, if you're okay, I was ready to make a motion. If that's all right. I'll make a motion for conceptual approval with final review by staff and staff's comment. Oh, which is positive.
Second that.
All right, we have a motion on the floor by Bill for conceptual approval with final review by staff and staff comments noted, and second by Julia. I'll put it to a vote. Fillmore?
Yay, in favor.
Glenn?
Yay, in favor.
Bill?
Yay, in favor.
Julia?
Yay, in favor.
Chair votes in the majority, and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Jenkins. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to our final agenda item of the evening, 26 Montague Street.
All right, who seconded that one?
Me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julia.
Just bear with me for a moment. All right. Here we go. All right, 26 Montague is our next agenda item, and they are requesting conceptual approval for rear addition and a new construction of a dependency in the rear. Here's an aerial for your context. It's on the north side of the street between Smith and Pitt. And here's some just images of the building. Here it is from the street. Here's a shot into the backyard. And down the opposite side of the house, Sanborn maps from 1944 and 1955. And we have Ms. Fenno here with us, and if you want to take it from here. I'll add it right. There we go.
Great, thank you, Kim. I'm Becky Fenno. I'm presenting 26 Montague Street, and we are proposing a restoration and addition to the main house and a new dependency at the rear. We did present this on June 10th at the board meeting, so I will primarily be responding to the comments made by the board and the staff, And if there's anything else you'd like me to discuss, I'm happy to do so. Next slide, please. These are the comments made. The first one was simply an acknowledgement that the removal of the rear additions is a positive change to the property. Number two is that the roof lines in the proposal are somewhat confusing, but a refinement of these would be studied, perhaps a deeper elevator recess and separation of roof lines. And this primarily centers around the hyphen which exists between the existing and proposed. And we have recessed, we have created a deeper recess of the hyphen, and we have also given the hyphen its own lower slope roof line to create a distinction between the existing and proposed buildings. The next comment is the HVAC location should be restudied. The HVAC will not be visible from the public way, and we'll show that on the drawings. The next comment really was to restudy the dependency, the footprint and geometry of that building to make it primarily more narrow and have a more vertical proportion. And we revised the floor plan of that building to be more narrow and more rectangular, similar to what's seen on the Sanborn map. This reduced the footprint size slightly, and it also pulled all parts of the building back behind the main building, and it also made the north and south elevations more vertical. We then also enhanced that verticality by increasing the roof pitch and changing the window type. And then the last comment was to consider unification of the historic fenestration. We did study this. I studied this with the contractor, Rick Rockwell, and the client. And we felt like it would be too invasive to change the fenestration. And I'll show a couple photographs to explain that as well. Next slide. These are the street views of the property. Next slide. These are the south and west and east elevations. Next slide. This is the rear of the property. Next slide. We've added these photographs. There was some question last time about the visibility from Bull Street. These are views from the driveway at 43 Bull Street. We think if there was no vegetation, which there's quite a bit at the moment, if there was not any, there's a red rectangle in the center photograph where part of the top of the north elevation of the dependency may be visible. Next slide. This is in response to item number 5. The top photo shows the first floor room on Montague Street, and then the bottom photographs show the second floor room. So you can see the first floor room with the 2/2 windows and the upper floor with the 6/6. We are requesting actually to leave these windows in place. We worry if we start to replace them that we will damage the historic trim and historic plaster. So we are really asking that we simply tell a story that there were various campaigns of renovation on this building. Next slide, please. These are the Sanborn maps showing the previous dependencies. Next slide. We've added this slide in case there was any question about the appropriateness of the dependency in the neighborhood. Next slide, please. This is the survey and the existing site plan at the bottom. I just want to make a note on the lower site plan that there is an existing wood fence at the end of the piazza that exists at this time. Next slide. The lower plan is our current proposal, and the one at the top was the proposal made on June 10th. So if we look at the bottom plan and work from the left from the street, you can see the existing building, and then in the hatched area, that's the beginning of the hyphen and the addition. And we've pulled that west wall, the addition of the hyphen, back another foot. So it's 2 feet from the face of the existing. And then to the right side of the hyphen is what we're proposing, a 6-foot paneled wood wall. So really moving the existing wood wall from the end of the piazza to the end of the hyphen. And tucked behind that will be the HVAC. And since we're in an X zone, that HVAC can be very close to grade. So it will be completely concealed by that wood paneled wall. And then the rest of the addition to the main house, we have not changed. But as you go to the rear of the property, you can now see the dependency and the changes we've made to the floor plan of that. So we have recognized the comments from the last meeting and made that more narrow and more rectangular, similar to the Sanborn map footprint. And now you can see that that entry stair and stoop is clearly pulled back from the face of the existing building. Next slide, please. This is the first floor plan existing. Next slide. Really in this floor plan and the second floor, you can see the deeper recess at the elevator. Next slide. This is the existing second floor. Next slide. This is the proposed second floor at the bottom. Again, we've pulled back the wall of the hyphen. That's okay, you can keep going to the upper floors. This is the upper floor existing. Next slide. Upper floor proposed. Next slide. This is the existing roof plan. Next slide. This is a proposed roof plan at the bottom, and you can start to see that we've created a low slope area between the existing roof on the left and the proposed addition on the right. Next slide. This is the street front elevation. Next slide. This is the existing south and north elevations. Next slide. So this on the left is the south or elevation on Montague Street. And there are a couple of things to look at here. We also responded to some of the additional comments made by the board and staff. So we have in our proposal at the bottom left, we have removed the vertical divisions in the screening to simplify that screening behind the existing piazza. You can see there that we're requesting to leave the existing fenestration and simply tell a story that this house has been renovated over time. And also on the bottom, you can see that in the distance, there would be the wood paneled fence, which would conceal the HVAC. And then there was really no change except for a little bit of additional detailing on the north elevation. Next slide.
Ms. Pino, you've got about 2 minutes left.
Okay, great. Next slide. This is the east elevation. Next slide. This is the west elevation existing. Next slide. Here you can see the existing building on the right we've removed the vertical divisions in the screen. And here you can see how we have really defined the hyphen better in response to comments. It's set further back and it has a lower slope roof. And you can also see to the left of the elevator door, the wood fence that's concealing the HVAC. Next slide. This is the dependency. So again, the footprint has been made more narrow. And next slide. The roof plan. Next slide. These are the elevations of the dependency. So on the left, you can see the west elevation. It's a little bit longer. And at the bottom right is the south elevation, which is more narrow and more vertical. And we've increased the roof slope a little bit without increasing the eave height or the ridge height. And we've accentuated the verticality with the 2/2 windows. We also responded to staff's comment by making a single entry door with an awning with brackets. Next slide. This is the east elevation where we removed the second floor windows, and then the north elevation with the French doors, and we've added an awning. Next slide. These are the sections. Next slide. This is the west site elevation showing the massing as it steps down going back to the dependency, and the height of the dependency has been reduced slightly. Next slide. And the east elevation. Next slide. The perspectives. Next slide. These are the proposed perspectives. So at the bottom left, you can see how the dependency is now almost tucked back behind the existing building. Next slide. These are the building sections. Next slide. And the building wall section showing that the hyphen would have a tongue and groove wall, and the addition would be wood lap siding, and that the detailing would be fairly traditional to complement the existing building. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Benno. Do we have any questions from board members?
I have one. Becky, at the dependency, I was just curious why you chose to elevate the first floor as much as you did. It's not a flood zone, is it?
It's not in a flood zone, it's in an X zone. So we actually just wanted it to a comfortable elevation. We could, that could be tweaked slightly up or down if there was a comment on that.
Cool. I was just curious.
There are no other board questions. Julia, do you have anything else?
No.
All right, we'll move on to public comment. Kim, do we have anyone speaking from the public?
We do. We have Erin Minigan. Erin, you have the floor.
Thank you. Erin Minigan with the Preservation Society of Charleston. The Preservation Society appreciates the applicant reaching out to us on this request and being receptive to our feedback. We feel the proposal is much improved, especially the roof over the addition and proportions of the dependency have progressed positively. Our remaining comment pertains to the dependency, where we feel the fenestration needs continued study. We understand the windows are responding to the interior program, but would encourage the design to better consider the exterior to create more regularly spaced and centered windows, particularly on the south and west elevations. Thank you.
That's all we have.
All right. Kim, I'll turn it over to you for city staff comments and recommendations.
Thank you. Staff feel that the proportions are much improved. On the dependency, the fenestration on the south elevation should be increased to 3 bays. While we appreciate the simplistic detailing, adding shutters or other small but impactful elements will add interest on the dependency as well. Staff's recommending conceptual approval with final review by staff.
Ms. Benno, did you want to respond to comments from the public or staff?
No, thank you.
All right, I'll open it up for board discussion and a vote.
This is Bill. I'll go ahead and jump in. I guess first of all, I just wanted to say that I do appreciate the efforts that the applicants made to address our comments. And I do think it's, as I think everyone has stated so far, that it's been a positive result. And I think that staff's comments and recommendation are valid in this case. I guess one other very minor point, and I don't know if this is something that the other board members would approve or staff would even like, but I just wondered that door at the base of the hyphen is the elevator door, and it is just out there. I didn't know how deep that wall is actually set in from those two adjacent walls. Is it back far enough you might be able to put a little bit of a hood or something over that door? That's the only thing that I found. Might be and that's just a functional issue, not aesthetic at all. So otherwise, I'm in support of staff's comments and recommendation, and again, appreciate the applicant's efforts.
I think that'd be a great idea, Bill. And I was also going to thank the applicant for being responsive. And I think the addition roof line is cleaner and simpler, and the dependency proportions are much improved. The reason I asked about the height of the first floor of the dependency was it occurred to me if you took it down some, you could just get rid of all the sort of visual noise of the railings, you know, and just kind of have it be more grounded. But you know, that's not something I would force you to do, just a thought. And I do agree with staff and the Preservation Society about the rhythm of the fenestration, especially on that south elevation. I think it could be a little more symmetrical or balanced. But otherwise, I think it's looking great. Thank you.
I don't have anything.
I have nothing to add. I think I agree with staff.
Okay, so how about a motion for conceptual approval with staff comments and final review by staff?
We have a motion on the floor for conceptual approval with staff comments and final review by staff. Do I have a second?
This is Bill.
Second.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Bill. Put it to a vote. Glenn?
In favor?
Fillmore?
Yay in favor.
Julia?
Yay in favor?
Bill?
Yay in favor.
Chair votes with a majority and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Fenno.
Thank you very much.
And that brings us to the end of this EARS meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?